Are you looking for an editor? I actually do free critiques and readings for your story every single Saturday on my live stream.
My name is sacred. I am Butternut. You want to minimize the chance of a reader being pulled out of the story and being like, wait, what's going on? Forget dropping to the drop zone. I'm dropping you guys now, but drop or die. I would go harder in on the language that you use when describing the technology, the mech, the air units. In a maze of unending grid-laid streets with no avenue of exit in sight, when I wake up from dreaming, sometimes I wake up silently screaming. Add or adjust some of the language so it matches Boschian landscape, mirror world, shadowland.
Or if you're looking to hire an editor for your next book because you're ready to take it to the next level, I do full editing services where we'll focus on character.
The man froze for a moment, then nodded. Wolf, me, Wolf. I want to know more about each of the characters. Wolf makes me suspect that he's either father, a pirate, the evil antagonist, like the capricious nature of life's tapestry. You want to highlight and elevate that relationship between the two of you, that meeting moment.
World building.
I want more of this. Rhyming tone is music to the ears. I saw you're dead inside. That something happened I never knew about. And all those lies, loneliness, and us having to cope with it, relate to it, understand it, or fight against it is a very powerful message.
Dialogue.
He was surprised that this woman, of all people, was giving him a pep talk, because sometimes when we have characters who speak too much, it's easy for someone to tune out if they're reading it. And this is a really interesting world, and I don't want people to tune out on your work.
And structure.
Ben jumped up a little disoriented and grabbed his gun. Running to the stairs, he heard men yelling, "Who else is down there?" During this shootout, I would just add a little more detail, make this a little longer, because this shootout is fun. This is like the action sequence of like, kill the bad guy, pow pow.
So that way your book will be all ready to be published. And let's take it to market.
Welcome to Kauffman Writes, the #1 creative writing show on the internet for strategy, discussion, motivation, inspiration, and maybe a little bit of procrastination. But don't worry, I won't tell anyone. You found yourself at our Saturday live reading and critique show. Welcome, welcome, my friends. Do you want your story read? Are you really trying to like understand like what's the thing that my story is missing right now? You can actually send an excerpt directly to my email, thecreativeghostwriter@gmail.com. And we got a show for you today. I have a number of submissions queued up. I want to say that I have about 6 to 8 submissions queued right now. Keep on sending them. If I can get through them all today, I absolutely will. Oh, I love it so much. But before we get into our reading and critique show, we can't call ourselves writers unless we start off with a writing sprint. So we're going to start off with a 20-minute writing sprint. But before we hop into that, are you watching this on the replay, or are you watching this after the stream has ended? Once the stream ends, I go back and I edit this into chapters, so you can actually jump ahead to the part of the video that brings you the most value. Or let's say that I'm reading your story and you miss a part of it, you can go back to that video and rewatch that section. It will highlight your name and the story title, and you can go back and watch that as many times as you want. That way you don't have to go through the entire video when you're looking for value on the replay. Awesome. And by the way, if you're new to my live stream experience, welcome. Today, we are streaming for the first time to all 5 platforms. I'm welcoming Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and X. So welcome. If you're from one of our new platforms, welcome, welcome. I'm Kauffman. I'm on a mission to connect with every creative writer in the world. I have this weird, crazy dream that if I put out my writing process, I live stream the process every day, that it will attract other writers who are interested in learning the process. Whether you're a beginner or an advanced writer, I welcome you to the community of creative writers. I have this dream where one day we can create a creative writing collaborative company, brand, where we can reach the entire world. I want to inspire, kindness, confidence, and creativity. So that's what I'm about. You can always check out more on my YouTube channel or on any of the private profiles that you are streaming from. All right, and let's hop into the stream. Atomic in the house. Welcome, welcome, my friend, the top of the stream. And Miss Stephanie Pilz, welcome, welcome. Stephanie, I got your story queued up early on today for our stream. Super excited to read another style of your writing. So that I'm super stoked for. All right, so let's hop straight into our writing sprint. Now, let's just say it's been a really long week for you. That's totally all right. If you're not feeling that creative writing energy right now, that's fine. I'm going to put up the 20-minute writing sprint and I'm going to work on my story, The Last Scarecrow. Feel free to sit back, listen to the music, and you can read along as I write vicariously for the both of us. Or let's say you are feeling super creative. You can, whether that's brainstorming, writing, or editing, feel free to tag along. Super easy sprint, 20 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to cue up the music. And of course, by our very own Atomic Elf, mix number 1. Hey, welcome, Mammyy Telly. Welcome, welcome. I'm glad it's letting you comment now. I am so excited. I'm looking forward to digging into your story today as well. Welcome, welcome. All right, so let's hop straight into it. Writing sprint. There we go. So I got Last Scarecrow queued up. I am, man, these characters, I'm telling you, my heroes, I have 6 heroes that are part of the main group. We have Last Scarecrow, the Pixie, Pebble, Gore the Bear, Stretch the Snake, and then the Red Dragonkin. The 6-1 skunk is unconscious and passed out, so she's not part of this scene. But right now we have these 5, and we've just been introduced to the hags. Oof, these hags are like these mystical type creatures, and we're learning some interesting things about them. All right, so let's see what we get up to today. 20 minutes on the clock, and it's time to write now. Hey, what's up, LeMay? Welcome to the stream. Welcome. We're just in the middle of our writing sprint, and then we're going to hop into our live story reading and critique show for the day. So stay tuned, my friend. I think that is a good stopping point. All right. I feel like I was able to get some really good I got some good writing in on my writing sprint. Ah, I love it. I am having so much fun with this part of my story. Exploring the Hags characters is really it's fun. This is the first time in this story where I have three distinct characters who are all have very unique types of abilities. I'm specifically not going to refer to it as magic per se, but each of them have very specific type of abilities. And prior in the story, there haven't really been any real characters with abilities. Um, Pebble has a little bit, but it's been a very like underlying level. This is the point in the story where it's very like going to be right in your face. And now we get to kind of see a little bit more of the mystical side of the world beyond what we've seen with the nothingness, basically, and the first demon. So having fun. We're also this scene's also going to be setting up for the next I want to say like the next 15% of the novel as we get into and we're approaching Act 3 and the climax. Oof. Oh, I'm excited. I have too much fun. So thank you for joining me for that. All right. So let me hop back over here. Welcome to the review and critique show. I am so excited to hop into your stories. So, do you want your story read live? I'll do a free reading and then a critique. Make sure to send an excerpt to thecreativeghostwriter@gmail.com and I will add it to the submission and the queue process. All right, and let me see. Making sure that I'm checking it. And it looks like we have a good deal of viewers on. Once again, welcome if you're joining us from LinkedIn or X. Welcome to the stream. All right, and then let's see. So before we hop into the readings and the critiques, I want to do a quick shout out. So starting tomorrow is going to be the very first episode of the Creative Right Now podcast. Episode 1 it's going to be called Writing a Novel That Matters with published author Mike Clausen. So our Creative Right Now podcast, I'm going to be airing it tomorrow, same time, same place, instead of doing my normal Kauffman Writes episode. It's going to be a live event, a live podcast where I chat with published and successful authors who have done the storytelling process, are doing it successfully, and are continuing to do it successfully as we continue to get some industry insights to help you become a better writer. And this is targeted whether you're a beginner writer, intermediate, or advanced to help you in the process. So join us tomorrow for the Creative Right Now podcast. Okay, and then let's see, we got that out of the way. Perfect. So it is time for the live story readings and critique show. Woo! Hopefully I can get some cool sound effects at some point. And I will add that to the top of the show. All right, so let's see what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little bit of explanation of the process. While I'm doing that, our first story of the day is by Carla Inez Espost. The reading Dinky and the Eagle Thieves. All right, Carla. So I'm going to be doing this reading and critique for you. And we got this set up. Awesome. And if you're in the stream, come drop by, drop a message. And as I get that ready, let me explain the submission process. So a couple of housekeeping rules, and especially as I'm have to restructure my end. So a couple of housekeeping rules. You can submit an excerpt of your story at any time before or after the show. Once I receive the story, at the end of, let's say, today's show, it gets added to the number of stories for next week's show. If I don't make it through all the stories, then your story will get added to the top of the next show. So I accept submissions from any story type. We predominantly received fantasy, sci-fi, thrillers, a mix. We've received some fun mecha ones. We've seen some horror. I've gotten some short stories, poetry, novels, scripts. We're getting all the different stuff. What's this stuff? I actually haven't gotten a stage play yet. Ooh, I'll have to make sure to get one of those readings on soon. But I feel confident I can read and critique any type of story, because regardless of the genre and the formatting, what doesn't change is storytelling. All right, so you can submit that. Now, in terms of the format, the stories that you've submitted themselves, you can submit them as Google Docs or Word docs or as PDFs. If it's a script, you can submit it as a final draft. I accept all the types. Now, what you're going to see on the screen, I've actually adjusted the formatting of the font and the size. I've blown it up to Comic Sans, so that way, if you want, you can read along as I'm doing the reading. But just know that because it's blown up, the page count is going to be way off, because I wanted to make it as easy to access as possible. And then each story is going to get 20 minutes. I am continuing to improve on the process to keep myself on track, so that way I can try to get through as many stories as possible. Essentially, I'll break each submission and reading process down into 10 minutes of reading and 10 minutes of critique. So that way, every story, I'm trying to give it an equal amount of time. I'm like almost at the end of a section, I'll finish reading it. I try to get to story breaks if at all possible. All right, so story. All right, and I'm just setting this up on my end as I have to change up my screen here. All right, bear with me just a second. All right, and then let's see what else. So, oh, by the way, so I will throw up on my end. I'm going to throw up what basically my guidelines for the submission process and for how I go about critiques. If you're listening along or you're reading along and you catch something that really resonates with you, don't hesitate to drop a comment below when I'm doing the critique and share what you think's really working. I 100% empower you to join the discussion as we're talking about how we can improve the story, because all stories that come through here, I approach with a mindset of we want to improve the story as much as possible, so that way you can get your story to that published draft before you know it, get your name out there, make money, and do all the things that are involved in the storytelling process. All right, and let me see. So I got this one. All right, and one more. Bear with me uno momento as I finish setting up this last one. Perfect. There we go. Sometimes it takes a second as I'm adjusting the screen. I've adjusted it to make it easier for you, so that way you can see me as I'm doing the reading and it catches my audio as well as efficiently as possible. All right, here we go. And have it all set up on my end. Let me adjust this and add this to the screen. All right, and I'm all ready to go. Perfect. Here we go. Awesome. Okay, so we got submission and story number 1. Dinky and the Eagle Thieves. And make sure you guys can see it. Perfect. Okay. Dinky and the Eagle Thieves. And by the way, if I am highlighting, not a good or a bad thing, just gives me a reminder for where I can come back to during the critiques. All right, and we're going to turn off Grammarly. Perfect. Dinky and the Eagle Thieves by Carla Inez Espost. Chapter 1. This is Dinky. She is a small and dainty girl with a big and tough mountain bike. This is her friend, Johnny. He's one of Africa's best mountain bikers. Johnny is teaching Dinky how to become a better biker. However, Dinky doesn't care whether she rides faster than someone else or not. She wants to learn how to ride better so she can have more fun on her bicycle. Today, they are going to ride in the old forest by the big hill. Some people say there is a strange village deep in the forest. Dinky is scared, but Johnny tells her, it's all just a story. Don't worry, Dinky. Let's go and enjoy the sun, dirt, and riding instead, says Johnny encouragingly. It's too far for them to ride to the forest from their homes, so Johnny and Dinky ask their guardians, William the dog and Suki the cat, to take them there. William and Suki drive Dinky and Johnny to where the forest starts. Once there, they can't drive any further because the road is too rough. It's time for Dinky and Johnny to ride their bikes. The soil smells sweet and the trees are tall. This will be a great adventure for the little mountain bikers. Dinky and Johnny pack their snacks and agree to call William and Suki when they're back at the meeting spot. Johnny starts pedaling, and soon he's far ahead of Dinky. Their full suspension mountain bikes ride smoothly over the rocks, but Dinky still has to pedal hard to keep up with Johnny. Johnny, wait! Slow down, please! Yells Dinky. Johnny slows down and stops next to her. This is so very hard. I'm not sure I can go on anymore. Dinky is already tired, and they've barely gone anywhere. She struggles with riding uphill. Actually, she prefers riding down rather than up. Johnny tries hard to think of a way to inspire Dinky. Look at all the trees. It's kind of hard to tell them apart. How many hues of green do you see? What do you mean? What are hues, Johnny? Look at the forest. Now focus on the colors, says Johnny. See the different types of green? Notice how you can tell the trees apart by looking at each tree's unique hue of greens. Dinky gets distracted by the little lemon yellow butterflies dancing around. She almost forgets what Johnny asked. It's so pretty in the forest. Yes, and all the types of green are lovely. Yep, it's a real nice place to be. Now let's keep going, urges Johnny. He's a professional mountain bike rider, so he's used to going fast on the trails. Dinky gets back on her bike and they continue the ride. Soon, they pick up some momentum. When she starts going downhill, she always forgets how hard it was to get up the hill. Yeah, shouts Dinky as she whizzes down the hill. It's so fun to flow. And when there are little undulations on the track, it's even better. The winding The winding and rocky single tracks help to keep her motivated. Chapter 2. Dinky and Johnny dash deeper into the leafy green forest. They reach a pretty little clearing when Johnny notices that Dinky is out of breath again. Let's take a break here. The clearing stretches towards a hill to the one side and down the other as far as the eye can see. There are rocks the same color as the soil and goats scattered across the sea. They're so peaceful and cute. Dinky and Johnny snack on some fruits and water while the goats chew on sweet smelling bushes that seem to grow all over. Down the road, they see a colorfully clothed shepherd with a stick. The shepherd strolls over the perch of the hill, using his rock to reroute the goats that stray from the flock. Dinky and Johnny give him a smile from afar. The shepherd lifts his stick to gesture a greeting in return. Do you hear that? Asked Johnny. What a mysterious tune. It's like he's humming and whistling at the same time. Dinky doesn't hear anything. She's not sure why, but she feels shy about this. She decides not to tell Johnny this. The two friends enjoy their break while watching the shepherd and his goats disappear slowly into the forest. Now, Dinky and Johnny feel refreshed and decide to carry on further up the hill. Maybe there's a nice downhill on the other side, says Johnny to help encourage Dinky to keep pedaling up what they hope is the last bit of the hill. Dinky struggles to pedal, but somehow keeps going. Finally, just a short while after Johnny gets there, Dinky reaches the top of the hill as well. Yeah, this is a good hill to go down. Look at that awesome little jump on the side, says Johnny. I'm just glad I made it up the hill in one piece, shouts Dinky. She's not ready to go down yet, so she lets Johnny go first. Dinky rests a bit longer and then eventually decides to follow Johnny down. When she starts going down the trail, she gets a bit scared because it's really steep and the goat's path they're riding on is so narrow. Come, look here, Dinky, shouts Johnny from a bit lower down the trail. Johnny shows her a little mud mound he found, or as he calls it, a jump. He pedals fast so he can use the mound as a ramp to let him jump high into the air. That looks fun! Dinky wants to try too. She pedals as fast as she can, but instead of flying, her bike only plops over the mound. She puts her bike in the bushes to rest. It seems her legs are still tired from climbing the big hill. Well done for trying, Dinky. When we get home, I'll let you practice on my hopper ramp. Johnny is trying hard to keep Dinky encouraged. Dinky spots a small flower next to the mound they used as a ramp. At least I didn't crush this cute little flower. Suddenly, the sky cracks open. They hear a loud caw. Two monster eagles come sweeping down from the sky, and one eagle grabs Dinky's bicycle. Dinky tries to scream, but no sound comes out. Chapter 3. There is no way Dinky and Johnny can defend themselves against these monsters. The eagles are humongous with ferocious beaks and razor-sharp claws. It's so frustrating. All they can do is watch the thieves fly away with Dinky's bicycle. Dinky bursts out crying. She is sad, scared, and shocked all at once. Johnny tries to console her while making an emergency phone call to William. They just came out of nowhere. Dinky's bike got stolen by two monstrous eagles. We don't know what to do right now. Please come help. Oh no, what a calamity, shouts William. We are on our way as we speak. You guys need to get back to the meeting spot safely and quickly, please. Dinky and Johnny start heading towards the meeting spot on foot. Johnny pushes his bike along so that Dinky doesn't feel alone, especially after what just happened. Soon, they meet up with William and Suki, who brought along a local forest guard to help with the search. Dinky, still crying, climbs into the back of the car. She's starting to wish she never came on this ride. It's okay, dear child, says Suki softly. We will find your bike again. I'm sure it'll be all right soon, darling. I have a feeling we should go look for that strange village people told us about, says William. Yes. Perhaps the people there might know where to find the Eagle Thieves, agrees Johnny, hopeful. Dinky, you still have your cell phone, right? Dinky takes her phone out of her pants pocket. Yep, I do. William and I will head into the forest on foot. You stay here with Sookie and Mr. Forest Guard. Is that okay? Dinky's fe- Dinky is feeling truly hopeless right now. Although she doesn't even think they will get her bike back, she says, "Sure. Good luck with the search." And so the search for Dinky's mountain bike begins. Mr. Forest Guard gets into the passenger seat next to Suki. "I know the forest like the back of my hand. Let's drive and search along the fire roads." Suki is happy to follow the lead of this friendly forest protector. "Perfect. I knew it was a good idea to ask for your help, Mr. Forest Guard." "Take that road on the left here." Mr. Forest Guard tells Suki to drive towards an old, overgrown road. Dinky notices plants and rocks where Mr. Forest Guard is pointing. Frankly, the road doesn't look like a road, but just another part of the forest. Are you sure Are you sure this is an actual road, Mr. Forest Guard?" asked Dinky. "Dinky, dear, please be careful not to look a gift horse in the mouth," whispers Sookie, so only Dinky can hear. But Dinky's phone rings. It's Johnny. They haven't found any signs of Dinky's mountain bike yet. No village and no eagles either. "Oh no, my battery's going flat," says Dinky. "I'll message you later." Just as Dinky puts the phone down, they hear a loud thump. The car comes to a sudden stop. Someone should probably get out and check. Dinky is super worried and too scared to get out in the dark. "I think we hit a rock," says Mr. Forest Guard, concerned. End submission. End reading. Whew, man. Well, so first off, I think this is one of the first children's stories I've done on the show. This was actually a really interesting children's story. You can tell that the language that was used in the world is catered to a younger audience. The overall tone of it, you can tell is much younger, especially because the protagonist is a younger child, and the quotes, the dialogue, and the messages, the things that they're interacting with, it feels like it's like a childlike fairy tale. And I think that's actually really cool. I like the idea. First off, Dinky is a really cool name. Dinky is a great name for a character. I'm like, Dinky. I'm like, all right, Dinky, it's clever and it's unique. And I think that actually works out very well for this story. So let's see, Dinky and the Eagle Thieves. And I was interested, like the Eagle Thieves are actually really interesting. So we got two of the Eagle Thieves. I actually like on a first glance, as I'm thinking back through the story, and I'm like, what really stood out to me? I really liked, I want to say the world building was cool. I really liked the world building, felt good for it. I want to say, based off what we've seen so far, the plot of it feels pretty sound, right? So you have Dinky and Johnny are going on this bike ride. Their friends, which are Sookie and William, are part of their group, but let them go on their bike ride. Dinky and Johnny are exploring different places, and then a they come across like the shepherd. Dinky doesn't want to ride. You can tell Dinky has a lack of confidence. It's a coming of age story. And she gets to that part, and then the bike's stolen. And I think that's actually a really good moment. We can kind of tell that's probably the turning point into the second act of the story, the moment the bike's stolen. We can definitely tell. By the way, welcome to the stream, my friend Izio. We're just doing live readings and critiques. Are you a teacher in some school? I am not. I am a teacher in the school of me, myself, and I, but I have a lifetime of creative writing experience, education, and expertise. I decided I would just start my own creative writing school online. So it's in the process. Welcome, Adermus. Welcome to the stream. Feel free to read along as we're doing these readings and critiques. So as I'm hopping back into this story, so Dinky and the Eagle Thieves. So as I'm starting at the top here, I want to say I I really liked, once again, I would say the world building and the plot were definitely the strongest suits. I would say from an initial thought, the biggest opportunities for it, there's some opportunities for some description. Now, with stories like this, because they're catered towards a younger audience, the word choice and the ideas you want to, want to be directed at a younger reader. Now, let me preface this by saying I'm not as familiar with the market for children's stories, so take that in mind. But I'm coming at this from the point of just pure storytelling and assuming that this is going to be read for young children, probably based off the style of this story. This seems like this might be for children. Maybe, granted, I don't, when do children start reading now these days? I'm like probably like grades like 1, maybe grades 1 through 3, maybe, depending on reading comprehension. That would be my guess. Originally I thought this might be like a children's story with picture books or with pictures. um Granted, this actually could be a really good opportunity to include pictures throughout the story. I could like totally envision it with these like vivid scenes with Dinky and the bike and these eagles. It has a very, very vivid world, which I like. So let's see. As I'm going here, I like the message. Dinky, she's a small dainty girl. So her friend Johnny is one of Africa's. Yep, whether she rides fast. She wants to learn how to ride better so she can have more fun on her bicycle. So I think the one thing that I would include at the top of the story is so obviously she wants to learn how to ride her bike better. I would actually add another line of description and dig in to what is her motivation for wanting to ride a bike. Does she want more confidence? Does she want to ride a bike because she wants to be like the adults? In a normal story, I wouldn't think that this is important, but because this is a children's story and this is so early on, you want to spell out things like you want to be so obvious about things, especially for children because their reading comprehension is at such a lower level. You want them to grasp the concepts immediately. So because this seems like a coming of age story, I would even include here of like she wants to learn how to ride better so she can have more fun on her bicycle. All the adults ride on the bicycles. She wants to be a real adult or whatever the core messages of the story. So I think that would be my recommendation, at least for the initial part of the story. I loved the journey. The journey, once again, the plot and the journey of this is actually really, really point on. Now, usually with the structure and grammar, I would sometimes touch upon the way it's wording, but the wording or the way it's formatted could have gotten messed up in the way that it got sent over. So I'm not going to concern myself with the structure of it. Let's see. Dinky, Johnny. So Johnny's like the mentor character. You can tell he's like an expert bike rider. This is what he does. And I love that he's kind of like a father character to her, and he's kind of like showing her the ropes. I think the thing that I kind of want to know is Johnny, is he her actual father, or is he like a father's friend? I think maybe clarifying that could be a really good opportunity because he's kind of like a father character. Honestly, the story could be stronger actually if if her parents are passed and Johnny is like her guardian. I think that actually would make it. If I was like developing this, I'd be like, okay, Dinky's parents not in the picture. She wants to be a real adult because her parents were real adults. She wants to be like what she remembers her parents to be. Johnny is her waypoint in her place. But that's just random idea, subjective idea, food for thought. Let's see. Gotta adjust my screen a little bit so I can see. Okay. Let's see. Let me just touch upon comments. Let's see. Yes, Dermis, I do see the YouTube comments. Absolutely. I kind of go back and forth on which comments and when I touch upon them, so that way I don't break up the flow. Do you do creative writing? I'd like to help. Yeah, absolutely. As you know, I stream I do my creative writing live streams every day. If there's anything that you're interested in getting involved with, definitely come join the fun. I love writing. I'm interested in doing some collaborative things. So definitely message me. I'd like to get help with that. Yeah, absolutely. Message me and I'd be happy to better figure out like what you'd like to work on together. That'd be super cool. Atomic. My mother took me to the library and taught me to read before I started kindergarten, but I don't think that's typical. I don't think that is typical. I think in this day and age, Atomic, I think a lot of children end up learning either through school or learning online now. So that's actually really cool that you got that experience. When I was young, my mom took me to a bunch, or she enrolled me in a bunch of different book clubs and a bunch of different like extracurricular things. So I was reading from a very young age, and that was what inspired my writing. In all honesty, that's actually really cool to hear, though. No, you did a good job reading it as if you're reading it to younger children. It helps assess it rather than critically understanding how a kid might hear and respond to the dialogue and excitement. Thank you so much. No, I actually really appreciate that. For the readings, like I do have an acting background, but when I do these readings, I try to, and just so you know, I haven't actually read any of these stories beforehand, so that way it keeps it fresh. But I do try to dig into them and get into the reading to really capture whatever the voice, the tone of this, or the style of the story. And like, I love doing this. I think it's always fun. Thank you for the praise again. I was thinking Johnny was like an older brother type. Oh, that's actually interesting, Mammyy. I was like, Johnny actually could be an older brother type as well. Johnny acts absolutely could be an older brother type. I was thinking of him kind of like a father character, but an older brother would actually work really, really well. And this is the great thing, Carla. You could take it in either direction. It really just depends what you want Johnny to be. And if you're trying to figure out like character development things, you want to ask yourself, what is the core message of the story? For instance, if the core message is coming of age, Dinky learning to be an adult, what characters are best going to serve that core message? Would an older brother better serve that message? Or would an instructor serve that message? Or would a father type character? By asking yourself those things and relating it back to the message, you're going to make your story as impactful as possible. Really great idea, Mammyy. Nil, some clue to what's in the forest. Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. So like they're writing through the forest. And this is actually another question, but they're writing through the forest. And I think so I think part of the journey, Nil, is that their journey happens through the forest. So they're probably experiencing what happens as they explore the forest. I think it might actually be a good point though, Carla, to maybe touch upon what does Dinky know about the forest? Do they even know about the eagles, or is that something? Or maybe this could be a good moment to be like, they were going to ride into the forest where there are big hills and big animals or monsters, or like use types of language that like a child would be thinking of, right? Monsters and hills and big things. Everything's so big when you're a child. So make everything big because you're so small. And especially because Dinky's trying to grow confidence, I think that would be cool. That's absolutely a great point though, no? Trying to ask their guardians, William the dog and Sookie the cat. Okay, so this threw me off for a second. I'm like, okay, William. Okay, I was like, okay, this kind of took me a second. And by the way, you know me if you've been joining along in my live streams. My story, Last Scarecrow, is all about animals. It's all about talking animals. So I love the talking animal vibe, and especially for a children's story, these characters do work. What I would do is I need a little bit more setup for these characters, especially because they're coming back into the story later on. If these were just like one-off characters, like for this moment, it wouldn't be that important. But since they have a priority, especially Sookie, I would give a little bit of description, and especially in like a children's story, and especially if you add like a picture with it, right? William the dog. William the dog was a black lab with a spot across his eye, and he was the biggest dog Sookie had ever seen, and he was always licking her in the face or something. And Sookie the cat was wise and wise beyond her years. She would always come up to Sookie and play with her whenever she was down. And I think establishing that adds to the fun nature of the world and the character development. And it allows the children, especially a young reader, to really visualize, oh, there's these cool animals. Because the really cool animals is actually the eagles, who are the antagonists, but we haven't even got into them yet. Let's see, William and Sookie drive Dinky. I'm pretty good with their journey. Their snacks and agree. Yeah, so I'm pretty good with their overall journey. I like this mountain bike part. This is hard. I'm already tired. And I like that Dinky's really struggling and Johnny's kind of like inspire her. I actually think that's a really cool idea because it reinforces Johnny as a mentor character. That works out really, really well. Let's see. So the different types of green. I can tell the trees apart by looking. That is great. I could envision that Johnny like trying to help Dinky really understand the world and get her inspired. And she loves the flower. It's so pretty here in the forest. Yes, and all the types of green are lovely. I would, just a random idea, I would actually have him also point to a flower, to some type of flower here, maybe like a green flower here as well, because since Dinky touches upon a flower in the next section, it actually reinforces that Dinky has a love for flowers. So I would recommend that. Now, of course, it's unless you touch upon flowers later in the story, then it's besides the point. It's a real nice place. Spin urges Johnny is a professional mountain bike rider, so he's used to going. I like that. A little bit of description. I might have wanted a little sooner just so I better understand his character, but that's fine. Dinky's really the more important one to understand in a children's story. Yeah. Undulations. I would replace this with an easier word choice. A young child may know it, may not. As always, my number one goal with stories and my number one goal with editing, make it as easy as possible to be a reader. When there's a million books out there and a million different stories to choose from, if we make it as easy as possible, you're improving the likelihood of your reader staying in the story. And especially younger children whose attention spans are probably 10 times as worse than ours because they're still they're so young. I mean, our attention spans already suck to begin with. So I would say make it easy and choose easier word choice so you don't lose them. Chapter 2. So I think I've hit upon most of the points actually that I wanted to touch upon. The shepherd thing is cool. I think it's like a cute little moment. I went back and forth on if the shepherd part was really necessary, but I think it kind of builds to the world. I would almost recommend having them like wave to the shepherd and have the shepherd say some type of like message or something that references the core theme of the story. So that way it feels like the shepherd bit leads to the shepherd bit helps with driving the overall theme of the story instead of just being eye candy. Yeah, so for undulations, ripples or tiny bumps would be a great alternative word choice. It's so fun to flow when there are little ripples or tiny bumps on the track. It's even better. Great word choice, Atomic. And I think that's my only real note for the shepherd chapter. I like that. I might even highlight the animals that he's playing with. I would describe them because it's a children's story. You want to play up the animals, play up the lightheartedness as much as possible. Her falling down is great. I enjoyed that. The eagles, caca. Do eagles caca? I was like, for some reason I was thinking of like crows. But that might just because I've been writing R.I.P. Crow in Last Scarecrow. Oh, I killed off one of my main characters. I'm still reeling from it, even if it's been 2 weeks. Okay, but yeah, do eagles caca? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe they do. No clue. Yeah, and then this one's kind of just really goes into the William and Sookie one. I think once again, if you set up William and Sookie as characters, it will better establish them in this chapter. This chapter I was just confused, and they kind of came across as human characters in this section. So when they're reintroduced, I would reintroduce them and be like, hey, it's Sookie the cat and William the dog, and then continue to give them a little like, what is the thing that they do since they're as animals, just so that way it's better defined in the child's imagination. Yeah, and that's everything that I got for you. Carla. I hope that helped. This is a really cool children's story, and I'm actually really eager to read more. And yeah, write more. Good luck with the process. All right, perfect. So I got that one. That was a great story reading. I'm gonna hop right along to my second submission. Stephanie, we got you. Red Fire by Miss Stephanie Pilz. Stephanie, are you in the stream? Drop a comment if you're in the stream right now. Stephanie with Red Fire. Excellent. Wonderful. So, Stephanie, first off, I know we've done a number of your submissions of one of your other darker stories. I've been really excited to try out a different story style of yours. So thank you for submitting this. All right. So the story we got here is Red Fire. And it looks like we are doing, I think we're starting right at the beginning. So super, always awesome. Of course, I always accept excerpts in parts of the story, and we can always do we always do critiques based off like what we know of it. Granted, it always makes it a little easier when we start at the top of the story. All right, so perfect. Let me get this up. Wonderful. All right, and what do we got next? So we got Red Fire by Stephanie Pilz. And Red Fire by Stephanie Pilz. Viterlea. 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 I'm like thinking about that. I need like the correct pronunciation. Viterlea. I'm gonna go with Viterlea. I think that feels right. Viterlea is the oddest planet in existence to this very day. Viterlea is found just out of Earth's universe. It is a planet full of many mysteries, magic, and wonders unlike any other. This planet may sound like a paradise, but there are many dangers around at every turn. Some parts of Viterlea are dark and gloomy, while other parts are radiant and exotic. Viterlea was created by two vastly different but equally powerful beings. These two beings are so powerful that the beings that they had created thought of them as gods. These two powerful beings are named Eleanor and William. The two of them came from two different planets themselves. In the early years of Viterlea, when Eleanor would show herself on Viterlea, the beings that she created would paint her image on the walls and draft stories about her. Most of the stories now are only legends. Only a few still believe she ever existed. The legends about her quote, "She looked like an angel from the great heavens above, with electric blue skin." Eleanor had many powers, for instance. She had control over 7 elements. The portraits show her having a pair of blue wings coming out of her back that shine gold in the sun. She had pale blue hair that seemed to bring out the intensity of her lapis eyes, which saw far into the future. Also, in the portraits, Eleanor was wearing a white dress, and she held a mysterious glowing blue scepter in her right hand. She came from a planet called Wichka, which was once exquisite and magical, but dangerous to live on because it had a massive number of poisonous plants growing everywhere. A single touch from one of these plants would make a person beg for death. The legends about William say he once was a mighty dragon warrior, but when he betrayed his father, the king, for love, his father cursed him to be a half dragon, half man creature, so he could never hold the woman he loved so dearly. When he was not in his dragon form, he had purple skin, horns, and red symbols covering his body that glowed. The symbols meant strength, honor, and loyalty, but the only symbol for strength remained on his skin after his betrayal. The portraits of him show him in a battlesuit with a glowing ruby sword on his belt. In his dragon form, he had charcoal-colored scales and he had wings that looked like the color of the blood he drank. He had crimson hair and hypnotic amethyst eyes. His hands were in the shapes of claws that could cut down his enemies with one swing. He came from a planet called Darka. The planet was true to its name because it was a dark and fiery place. There was barely any life, making it seem like the planet was dead. It was hard to live on the ground because of the many volcanoes, so most people on his planet lived in houses that floated in the sky. A long time ago, Eleanor's and William's planets were at war with each other. The war started because of a misunderstanding, which led William's father to attack the people of Whitka. Unfortunately, the war ended violently, which sadly ended with the destruction of both planets. Eleanor and William left just before the war was over because they loved each other and did not want to die. Eleanor and William did not like the fighting and the hate that led to this war. They created Viterlea in the hope that it would be filled with peace and harmony. They split the planet into two sides so they could represent both their home planets on this one. William's side is a beautiful place of nighttime, dark as a moonlit sky, but without stars or a moon. Instead, there is a strange light that emanates forth, so it was not as dark as Darka. There is a forest that is big and wide, containing tall and menacing-looking trees, which grow red to light the way through. There are dangerous animals that live in the forest, like mighty dragons, venomous snakes, and vicious tigers. The dragons ruled the sky. They could breathe fire and would watch over those on the ground below in case they were in trouble. William wanted some of the dragons to form bonds with the beings he intended to create. The snakes stayed on the trees, not bothering anyone. That is, unless someone invaded the trees they were on. They would bite the intruder and poison them and eat them unless they brought the snake a gift, like a night spear flower for their nest. The tigers came in two colors. Some were black with red stripes, while others were red with black stripes, and they ruled the ground together. These tigers are vicious animals. But if you could beat one of them in a fight and form a bond with them, they would be at your command. If you lost the fight, they would devour you. He made the rivers and the streams run bright red with blood because that was what he drank, and that is what he intended his beings to drink. And there were gardens of fresh food for his beings. He built houses and a castle for his beings to live in. He made the houses of bloodstone, and he made the castle of black moonstone. The most important thing he brought from his planet was the last night spear flower seeds. The night spear flowers are blue, orange, pink, and purple. They only bloomed at night, and all the colors shine bright in the dark. He brought this flower from Darka because it was the first flower he gave to Eleanor when they first met. To him, this flower symbolized their love because it was lovely and could heal anything, but if not treated with care, could poison and destroy everything. Eleanor made her side full of life and light. She made 3 suns shine down during the day, and at night there were 3 moons that lit up the sky with a lot of sparkling stars. There were fields of green grass that sparkled in the sunlight, trees filled with all kinds of fruits, like sweet tamila berries, which were Eleanor's favorite fruit from Whitka. There were flowers growing everywhere, in every color you could imagine. The trees on her side were alive, and they could talk and move. She called them guardians, since they protected all the things she loved so dearly. She created wondrous animals, like fairies in many colors, and they loved to play tricks on those who could cross their paths. To anyone who could befriend one of these tricksters, they would be forever faithful. She made magical, wild, yellow wolves that were the gentlest creatures, and if you were to lose your way, the wolves would guide them to safety. On her side, she made the rivers and streams with clear, shimmering water, which had healing properties. The rivers and streams magically watered all the plants and flowers on the planet to help them bloom. There were houses and a castle for her beings. The houses were out of amylite because of all the colors in the stone. It shone brightly in the sunlight. She made the castle of moonstone because she loved how it shined in the moonlight. William made his beings look different than himself. He brought them forth through a dark abyss he made appear on his side. His beings looked bewitching, with long, blonde, skinny hair, with skin so pale it looked like ivory. Their eyes are a deep crimson that seemed cold and empty, but they shine in a way you knew that they were trustworthy. He made his two beings have a mark on their backs of a night spear flower. He gifted his beings with strength, speed, and the ability to control another's mind. With their minds, they could talk to each other telepathically. If they formed a bond with an animal, the animal would become a part of their being. William called his beings vampires. Despite the vampires' powers, William gave them one weakness: the suns, which could ultimately kill them if they were exposed to it for a long time. He named the first two vampires Queen Deva and King Fontos. Eleanor's beings differed from William's vampires. She made her beings come down from the suns. They were beautiful, with skin that glowed golden in the sunlight, with long golden hair to match. Their eyes differed from hers. They were an exotic blue that resembled a crystallized waterfall. She blessed her beings with magic and a powerful amulet called Red Fire, which was one of 7 amulets from Witka that were known as fires. Red Fire is all powerful. It can do anything that the one who wields it wants it to do. Eleanor calls her beings witches. She named the first 2 witches Queen Denna and King Dolo. William and Elena and Eleanor decided that the vampires and the witches should not know about each other until the vampires and the witches started to make more of their own kind. William watched as Fontos and Deva made more vampires by chanting to the abyss he made appear on the planet. After they did that, he saw more of his vampires rise out of blood. On Eleanor's side, she watched as Dana and Dolo make more witches by praying to the sun, the ground, the water, and through the power of the red fire, made more witches. She saw more witches flowing down from the bright suns. One day, the vampires and the witches went for a walk to see what was on the other side of the planet. On their walk, they ran into each other. William and Eleanor were watching them closely. They saw that King Dolo and Queen Deva wanted to fight each other. This made William and Eleanor mad, just as they were about to interfere to stop them from fighting. Queen Denna and King Fontos thought they could learn from each other instead of fighting. This made Eleanor and William thrilled. They helped the vampires and the witches make a treaty of peace with each other. The main point of the treaty said that neither could cross the other boundaries without having the other's permission first. End submission. End reading. Oh man, I really love that. I feel like that kind of felt like I was reading like a story out of Greek mythology. I love Greek mythology so much. I love how you started off with these like godlike beings, and you explore really the history of how they're creating this world. They're creating the world, they're creating the world, the creatures, the inhabitants, and then they have 2 opposing sides. It's like a yin yang, and then each side they create creatures. It's interesting. So they create animals to inhabit it, and then they create specific races of inhabitants besides the animals. They create the witches and the vampires. And that's actually a really, really interesting duality. I'm trying to think it do you I'm trying to think if I know a story where vampires and witches are used in the same used in a similar like mythology. I feel like there probably is, but I actually think that's a really interesting and fun combo. Yeah, wow. I really enjoyed that. I think hands down, when I think about the strength of that piece, Stephanie, is world building. World building, it was hand down absolutely incredible. I think the world building was great. I think your overall structure of it works out very, very well. I was actually pretty happy with how you set up the backstory of the gods, and then you kind of go through the description of how they're creating the worlds, and you're kind of doing like this whole setup. I'm actually really curious to know, when I think about the plot, I'm like, is the plot following Eleanor and William's, I guess, journey as they're watching their beings kind of like encounter each other and interact? It's a really like interesting concept, actually. It's a really intriguing concept. Or does the main character become one of these, the kings and queens, the vampires or the witches who are fighting at each other? I have William, Eleanor, and Eleanor tattoo. Oh, I love that so much. Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that, Stephanie. You know, when we get so invested in like our characters and our character development, like I was like, I absolutely love that. I have my first tattoo designed in my head. It's going to be around writing. I was like, maybe I would get one for Last Scarecrow. Maybe I'll think about it. There's some of my other stories that I've thought about it as well. Oh, that's so sweet. Let's see. Atomic, the legends about her quote. This might need to be reworded. Yeah, I think you were talking about, I think Atomic was mentioning a quote early on when they're describing the legends about her quote. She looked like an angel from the great heavens above. The legends above her, the legends about her quote. Yeah, I think I would just reword this section. We don't see them much later in the first book, but then come back later in the series. Awesome. Okay, that's really good to know. Let's see. And then Atomic, you mentioned a really good thing. Does his body glow, or the symbols? That sense should be reworded to make it clear, since it could be interpreted either way. Yeah, when you're talking about the character descriptions, I think defining the descriptions can be really powerful. Let me see. Because I actually touched upon a number. Let's say, no, there's things need to be fixed. Okay, perfect. Awesome. So you're probably aware of a lot of these, a lot of our recommendations then. What I actually really wanted to highlight, Stephanie, was I love your use of descriptions. I think you actually do a really good job of describing how each of the creatures look. I thought that was a lot of fun, actually. And you've given each of the characters, so you have the two gods, and then you have all the creatures that they create. You've given them some intricate descriptions. I love the blue wings, the 7 element. Eleanor had many powers. For instance, she had control over 7 elements. I would just say for 7 elements, maybe a little bit more like, what are the 7 elements? I'm curious. She had control over the 7 elements: fire, wind, air, water, earth. For somebody who doesn't know what the 7 elements are, that seemed to bring out the intensity of her lapis. I was like, what? I've heard that. I've heard lapis. Lapis is a deep blue metaphorical rock. Okay, cool. So it's a stone that works then. Intensity of her lapis. That'd be like the same of like using emerald, or which saw far into the future. Also in the portraits, Eleanor was wearing a white dress, held a mysterious glowing blue scepter in the right hand. Yeah, I don't think I have too many complaints about the description. When he was not in his dragon form, he had purple skin, horns, and red symbols covering his body that glowed. Yeah, so I think what I would do is there's body and it red the symbols. Let's see. I think I would just, it sounds like you already know that you need to touch up and fix a couple of things. So I would say, Stephanie, when you're going back through it on your edit and you're looking at each of the descriptions, and this is what I love to do with character description, read the description aloud. Sometimes like you can record it. Sometimes people like, some writers will do that. Close your eye, read it aloud, close your eyes. Does that description clearly show what you're seeing, what you're envisioning in your head? That's a really good test that I like to do when I'm going through an editing round. Let's see, atomic. At the beginning, it says the planet is just outside of Earth's universe. Should this be solar system or galaxy? Or it may need some context to explain being in a place outside of our normal space. Yeah, that was actually a really good point. When you're touching upon the location, Viterlea is the oddest planet in existence, is found just out of Earth's universe. Viterlea is found just out of Earth's universe. Yeah, I think that might actually be a good good opportunity there, because I'm thinking about like, what do we think of as a universe? I'm like, is that like our solar system, or is that like our very reality? That's actually a really great question. It is a planet full of many mysteries, magic, and wonders unlike any other. So I'm just out. Yeah, I think like if I were to reword that, I'd be like, Viterlea is found. It's just out of. I mean, like I'm kind of going back and forth. I'm kind of going back and forth on the Viterlea is found. Viterlea is found in a universe that in a universe which is found just outside. Viterlea is found in a universe located in. I can think. Viterlea is found in a universe located outside of Earth's own universe. Because then you're kind of challenging, like, okay, well, actually, let's go with this. What is a universe? If I were like researching, what is a universe? The universe is all of space and time and their contents, and comprises all of existence, any fundamental interaction. Okay. And I was like, yeah, so then I'd be like, all right, then I would explain. I think I would even just say like Viterlea is found in its own universe, unlike Earth's. Yeah, I mean, because I could see why, because you're kind of wanting to reference. And I think it comes down to, Stephanie, like, do you want the reader to be thinking of Earth as kind of like as a mirror? If so, I would reference it. But if you want Viterlea to be like its own thing, then I wouldn't. It really just comes down to your intent. You could probably go in either direction, I would say. And then Mammyy, I know you're saying I was a little confused about the half man, half dragon. I didn't catch the alternated form as opposed to always having characteristics of each. You know what? I actually caught that in a moment too. We went down to he had purple skin when he was not in his dragon form. So I think the legend about he once was a mighty dragon warrior, but when he betrayed his father, the king for love, his father cursed him to be a half dragon, half man creature. So he could never hold the woman he loved when he was not in his dragon form. Yeah. So I think in the description, you could probably touch upon that when you go back through your edit. Yeah. And I think clarifying that would probably be helpful, because I think when you describe him as being half man, half dragon, it's assumed that is one form, as compared to he's cursed as being a half man, half dragon who can transform, who shapeshifts between forms. And I think just adding that point of clarity would help clarify it for the reader. Because when he was not in the dragon form, yeah, I would add it like right here to make it easier for the reader to understand. I picked up on that, but I kind of had to like think about it for the moment while I was reading. But I did like the description about the character. I actually thought the description was super cool. Symbols meant strength, honor, and loyalty. I'm like so enamored by your world, Stephanie. Like, I think this is a really cool world. And I think the one thing that was missing for me out of this entire reading was the plot. I had this beautiful description of a world. And even though there's probably some opportunities for fine-tuning the character descriptions, which you're probably already aware of, for me, I'm not sure what the overarching plot is of the story. Now, this is essentially a setup for like the first section. And I'm actually kind of curious if I was to drop this word count. I'm kind of curious how many pages this would actually be if this was like Times New Roman. So this is about 20 pages, or about 19 in a normal story. Yeah, and I think the only thing I'm missing, Stephanie, is I think I just want to know like what is the what's the plot of it? Now, obviously, it's called Red Fire, right? And you touch upon like the Red Fire, and I'm like, that's actually super cool. Like, I want to know more about the Red Fire thing. And because it's about Redfire, the thing that I really want to know, and I know you said earlier that William and Eleanor, it looks like we don't see them much in the first book, which is fine. Who's the protagonist? Who is the protagonist of the story? And even in story, and maybe you don't, maybe this could be like a group. Maybe it's because you're following a bunch of different characters, which is fine. But even with like a group story, there's still usually a single protagonist who is the anchor point because it's their story throughout. And I think that's just the one thing that I'm missing. Now, probably because you're doing so much setup and description here, you probably touch into it in the next section. And my guess is maybe they're created. They're either created, and maybe it has to be one of the vampires or one of the witches. Like one of them has to be a protagonist, or maybe it's a group of them. I think I would highlight whenever they're created, I would highlight whoever is the first one created, highlighting what their protagonist, like who the story is really going to follow, even if it's just like touching upon it for like a couple sentences, because it helps to anchor the reader into whose story am I following. Because right now, from what I've read, I would actually assume that the protagonist is either Eleanor or William, because everything that's happening is a result of their actions. Now, of course, we're also so early into it. And we start getting an introduction into the vampire and witches, the kings and queens. But I would think, and maybe it's one of them is the main character. I get to that in chapter 1, and I may move this to later in the story. You know what? I would actually and this is just my personal recommendation, I would actually keep a good section of this in the beginning. Because I think the setup for this world is so interesting. It's a really, really unique setup. I think I would just clarify because I get to that. And so clearly this is the prologue, right? And I think that makes it even clearer, right? If I was to be like prologue, because prologues, you can usually do this sort of thing with world setup and world description. That actually makes it a little clearer than that this is just setup. What I would do then is I would actually break this up into 2 sections. Yeah, that's what I would do. I mean, you guys tell me if you're here in the comments, how long do you think a prologue should be, or how long is a prologue on average in stories? Because I'm thinking from a reader, I don't want to make my prologue super long, at least in book 1, because I don't want a chance losing them. If I'm on book like 10, my prologue can be longer because I know readers are already invested. But on book 1, I try to keep my prologue a little shorter. I'm actually kind of curious. What is the average length? Average length of a prologue. The average length, this just according to an initial Google search, it says the average length of a prologue is between 1,500 to 2,500 words long. As you can see, it is a little shorter than the actual chapter, and that is the golden rule of a healthy prologue length. Of course, this is just based off one article. I would, of course, research more. And even this is at 1739. So this falls into a prologue. This falls into the average, at least according to this one article, which is interesting. Let's see. Let's see. So I get to that in chapter 1. Yep. And I also I say the name of the planet differently. Yeah, I was like, I would actually also, Stephanie, make sure to include a pronunciation guide. You're probably already going to do that. But pronunciation guides, especially for some of these names, so helpful. So helpful. I was like, I wanted to say, is it like Viterlea? Viterlea. I like want to get it right because it's actually a cool name. Like, and that's something actually I also would like to call out, Stephanie. Your word choice and the names for things is actually super cool. I love the way that you're naming things. I think Eleanor and William, I think theirs was the only names where I'm like, Eleanor and William, for me, do they sound like gods? Little debatable, but honestly, I think that's subjective. That's besides the point. When I think of a god's name, I think of like Greek mythology, Zeus, Orpheus, Mephisto. But that's also Greek. There's no, it's some parts of it are like, these 2 beings are so powerful, the beings that they had created. Gotcha. These 2 beings are so powerful that the beings that they had created thought of them as gods. And okay, I definitely like assumed I missed that part, but they are beings, but they thought of them as gods. So then, Stephanie, what I would do is I wouldn't even reference gods in the beginning, because by referencing the word gods, it makes me think subconsciously that they're gods. These two beings are so powerful. These two beings have such unimaginable power to alter time and space, or to shape planets and create stuff. Yeah, I would just get rid of the term gods then, so that way you don't chance confusing the reader. Let's see, what else did I get? Yeah, and I think like fairies, they love to play tricks, or those that could cross their path. Oh, I wasn't sure. The houses were out of amylite. Is amylite a word? I probably just haven't heard of it. Amylite. Amylite is an opal-like organic. Oh, gemstone. Yep. Okay. Yeah, so you use a lot of descriptions for different types of gemstones, which I absolutely love. I'm just not as familiar with some of these other gemstones. Like I'm familiar with like emerald, topaz. I think some like the more frequently used ones, but I actually like that you're using gemstones as descriptions. With this is a side note on this specific section. With their minds, they could talk to each other telepathically. I would say I would replace talk with communicate, so it doesn't confuse. With their minds, they could communicate with each other telepathically. Yeah, and Stephanie, I think that's basically all that we got for you. Like, once again, I love the description. I would just say, I mean, this is the prologue, so the plot actually, you don't really even have to set up the main character till chapter 1. But yeah, if you were going to cut it down, I would say it seems like the real different sections is you have the powerful beings, William and Eleanor, them creating the world with all the random creatures, and then the vampire and witch races. That seems to be the 3 sections of the story. If you were going to cut it down, I would say, I mean, I think Eleanor and William, I think that's actually interesting by setting them up as these beings. I would say maybe minimize on the description of the world, or in terms of like how the world was created and the creatures, and maybe getting to the vampires and the witches, because it feels like since the story is called Red Fire and the witches are using the red fire, that's probably where the story is starting and taking place. So I would actually start off with these beings, they create stuff, they create the witches and the vampires, and then save that description with something like the world building and the creature types for later in the story when your like characters are exploring or better understanding the world. If you're going to cut a section, that'd be my suggestion. Oh, Mammyy Telly, yeah, that's another good one. They just communicated telepathically. I think that would work too. So, awesome. Stephanie, really great story. I'm eager to hear more. I like really want to know more about the witches on the Red Fire. Like you've like lit up my imagination with so many different like creatures and animal types in this story. And I feel I'm like, there's this like there's like the light side and the dark side, and you got like dragons, and you got these I forgot what it was, like the tigers with the different stripes. You've set up so many different types of creatures, and it's interesting. For me, I found it fascinating. And as y'all know from Last Scarecrow, I love animals. So you totally won me over, Stephanie. I would definitely, this is the type of story that would be targeted towards me since I'm a fantasy reader. Excellent. But once again, Stephanie, thank you so much for sharing this. As always, have fun with these excerpts. All right, so let me change gears to the next one. Let's see, who do I got next? I got submission number 3. Mammyy Telly, I actually got your story next on deck. So stay tuned while I pull that up. And in the meantime, while I'm setting that up, let me throw this up. Let me see. I'll send more. Sweet. I'm looking forward. I would love to actually read some sections into the story and kind of see like what the character journey looks like. It sounds like a lot of fun. Let's see. And by the way, while I'm setting this up, If you found any value from this stream, don't forget to follow and subscribe. Tap that follow subscribe button, and that way you'll be alerted when I come out with the daily writing live stream to help give you some motivation or maybe help you just stay consistent and work on your writing. I also come out with weekly writing videos and creative writing shorts to either give you inspiration or help you become a better writer. And then, as I touched upon at the beginning of the stream, tomorrow we're also introducing the Creative Right Now podcast, where I will be interviewing different writers throughout the series and writers who are published and who are doing it successfully. So the catalog continues to expand. I am so excited. Oh, I love it. So don't forget to tap that follow and subscribe button. All right, so let me hop into this. I never got his name by Mammyy Telly. All right. Okay, I'm on a really good roll here, so I feel really good with where I'm at. All right, submission number 3. And by the way, I just want to give a shout out, and I just want to say, I'm setting this up here. Perfect. And let me get this. By the way, I just want to give a shout out for all of you who are dropping comments in the chat. Thank you so much for being involved. I really appreciate that you're kind of giving things that you're seeing and things that you're helping with. And I want to make this note for all writers, especially if I'm reading your submission today or in the past or in the future. I come from the mindset, all critiques are great critiques. My goal for you is to improve your story so that way you can have the best story possible. So thank you, community, for helping me out. Sometimes you catch things that I miss, and sometimes you touch upon things that are right on my mind. So I love it. Yeah, I think that's important to recognize. Kane, podcast, great. All the best for the work ahead. Yes, exactly. So Sundays are going to start being my new podcast segment. So far, the way this has been working out is Kauffman Writes is my daily live stream, which I've been doing Monday through Friday. Saturday I still package it as a Kauffman Writes live stream, but essentially it's more about this reading and critique show. And then Sundays is going to be an actual a podcast. It will be streamed in the same format, but it's going to be packaged and advertised as a podcast specifically. It will be airing through all the normal channels, and I am also going to be putting up the podcast on the main areas where podcasts can be found. So stay tuned as I'm kind of exploring and learning the journey of the podcast circuit. All right, excellent. Okay, and I am all set up here. So and reset. All right, perfect. So I never got his name by Mammyy Telly. What the hell? I sputtered as I surfaced. What the hell was that? The hard thump had capsized my small sailboat and tossed me into the lake. I looked all around, feeling stupid for doing so, as if some fish or mini sub would pop up and say, "Oops, sorry about that." Of course, there was nothing. No log or pocket of gas did this. As I started to try to right my boat, I felt something hard bang into my leg. I hoped it was just something like a sturgeon. Whatever it was must have been caught in the sail and was thrashing its way free and taking my craft for a ride. Suddenly, it was all quiet. Too quiet, I thought. I swam over and again tried to turn the boat over. It flipped up easy as the sail was now in tatters and the mast cracked. Damn! Well, at least I had secured my car keys and wallet. I was a good half mile from shore. and was happy my paddle would float so I could. Ah, shit. Are you kidding me? My paddle was way over there and drifting further away from the shore. Now, I have heard some stories about this lake. Wild tales of spirits and strange creatures were passed from one generation to the next. I heard them all and believed none of them. After all, they were just local legends to scare off tourists, right? Right? Everyone knows there are no such things as weird monsters. I'm not sure if I was trying to reassure or convince myself. Because it seemed like something to do. I yelled as loud as I could, "Help!" I saw no one on shore, but since I was still so far out, it was unlikely anyone would have heard. Yeah, that was a waste of breath. I just gave in and sat drifting. It wasn't terribly nice out to begin with, but the breeze was just right, and the morning's drizzle had eased off, so I took a chance. It was to be a nice, relaxing few hours. Now, I felt I had enough relaxation and really wanted to pack it in. I was about to swim for it when a light mist started rising off to my right. Shortly, it became thick enough. I could no longer see the shore. Now, when you find yourself adrift in a fog on a supposedly haunted lake, you could be forgiven if you begin to panic, have a life review, or laugh hysterically. Oh, to become just another chapter in the legend. I started to chuckle. Fog, by its nature, plays with sound. It seemed to dampen yet scatter any noise, which may be why I didn't notice the dark shape moving towards me. As it got closer, it resolved to a man in a canoe. As much as I hoped for a rescue, I was apprehensive, particularly because of the timing. For the first time in 7 years, I didn't have my pocket knife. In a pickle, are you? Well, you're not the first and won't be the last. He coughed, then threw me a line. Thanks. Can't tell you how thankful I am to see you, especially in this soup. I breathed easier and my heart rate slowed a bit. So, what brought you out here? Not monster hunting, I hope? He asked with a wry grin. Monsters? Nah, of course not. I just wanted some peaceful sail time. I don't believe in all that and don't have the time to invest in legends. I'm Ed, by the way, and you are saving your butt. So sit tight and I'll get you to shore. He rebuffed any attempts at conversation after that. I was surprised at the short amount of time it took. I have no idea how he found it, but he brought me right up to a makeshift pier. It looked like a couple of floating pallets zip tied together. I scrambled out and tied up what was left of my boat. Go right on up to the house there. Using his paddle, he pointed to a neat little cottage up the slight hill. They're real nice, and I'm going to help you get sorted. I turned to thank him, but he was already headed out, fading into the mist. I never did get his name. I climbed the weathered steps, and as I got to the top, I again turned to at least wave goodbye. I was surprised to see the fog lifting, and nothing but a light mist over the hint of a wake. The old man was right. Mr. Armstrong offered to bring my boat back to my car on the other side of the lake. Miss Armstrong offered me a nice cup of tea after such an ordeal. I sipped it and enjoyed the warmth of the cottage, the genteel hospital, and a few homemade cookies. The genteel hospitality and a few homemade cookies. Cookies. The house had a grandmother Victorian vibe. Lots of rose chintz, knickknacks, doilies, and lots of photos. Miss Armstrong, dripping with pride, showed me each one on the mantel, accompanied by a personal vignette for everyone. I smiled politely. And I hoped I added the appropriate compliments. The last photo, however, was that of the old man in the canoe. My father. A sad smile crossed her face. He loved this lake, so he loved this lake, so he built this house here. Silly, really. He fell for all those stories about the lake's monster. Always out looking for evidence to support the story. Never found it. So I guess he's still looking? What do you mean still? She looked over to her husband. What was that look I glimpsed in her eye? Mr. Armstrong stepped in and put his hand on his wife's shoulder. Exactly what do you mean by that? He slowly demanded. Well, I didn't catch his name, but that's the man in the canoe who came to my rescue. I wondered about the change in their attitude. I'm sorry if impossible, Miss Armstrong breathed. I'm sure it was him. I looked at the photo again. Yes, I'm positive. It couldn't have been him, said Mr. Armstrong. His canoe overturned and his body was never found. You mean, I started. Yes, Miss Armstrong said in a shaky voice. It's today. He died exactly 24 years ago. End story. Wow, I really like that. That's actually one of those stories that really sits with you. It's you set up this very like haunting world with it. I think what I like is it's kind of borderlines. Like it kind of feels like, oh, it's going to be this like cute little like journey that she's in a boat. She's like canoeing or she's sailing in the middle of a lake. It breaks down. And I thought it was going to actually be like a her versus nature thing. And she was going to be trapped in this lake trying to get back. And then you kind of tie in these like the supernatural element to it with the canoe man, the father. And then I'm like, oh, so he's actually a ghost. Or maybe he's a spirit. I'm like, actually, I think ghosts can't touch the world. I think spirit might be better. Or figment. I'm like, I have to think of the right word for that. So that was actually really cool. I actually really appreciated that. I think the things that I really liked, I actually really liked the plot. I like the overall plot of the story. I think it's very clear. You have her, the real world, she's out boating. The second, the creepy part, she gets saved by the mysterious spirit. She goes to, she talks with the couple and learns the truth. He's been dead for 24 years. So the plot is very straightforward. I like that. And I think it really works. Let me think. So I would say plot works well. In terms of structure, I think the overall structure actually of the way the entire story is formatted works. From a grammatical standpoint, I like always have to touch upon this. Quotation marks. Quotation marks, only use them if a character is specifically speaking or a character has dialogue. If a character, and I think there's a couple points where I pointed it out. Like this. So Fisher mini sub would pop up and say, oops, sorry about that. Now, technically this character is mini sub would pop up and say, oops. So technically the character is saying it, but as if some fish or mini sub would pop up and say, oops. I think because you're describing this in the past tense, this isn't actually being said. I think like you're describing something that already happened. So it feels like that this description would almost be like this. I believe I'd have to think about that because you're describing a story that happened in the past tense as something that already happened. Dialogue is really if a character is speaking right now in the present moment. I might have to research that actually. That's interesting. But there was another couple, I think there was an area later on when I think it was when he is speaking. Pride. Oh yeah, and then this part with the dialogue here, I would just fix this. I think you actually meant for the dialogue to end there, I believe, because I realized like this is what she's all speaking. And I think that's all good. And that was just a quick note about dialogue. Let's see. In terms of the world itself, it starts off and like very like the normal world. The heart thump. The hell was that? I looked all around, thanks to for doing so, as if some fisherman, he said, would pop up and say, oops. So you start off with the present moment with the boat capsizing, which is great. I think after this initial moment, I hope there's just something like astringent. I think I would actually explore the world a little bit more. So after you've set up this initial boat capsizing, I would explore, because she starts thinking about like the lake, tales of spirit. Now I have heard some stories about this lake, wild tales of spirits and strange creatures were passed from one generation to the next. I heard them all and believed none of them. They were just local legends to scare off tourists. I actually would consider almost starting the story with this. Or not necessarily even this specific like section, but starting off the story with this idea. Because right now it feels like it's starting off with like it's about her capsizing a boat. Now this is purely a subjective advice. I think I wanted to get the feeling from the very immediate get-go that this is kind of like this feels like a supernatural ghost story. And right now it kind of goes back and forth. And then you have that punch at the very end. You're like, oh yeah, he was a ghost. I'm like, yeah, that's creepy. And there were some moments in the middle where like you thought like some like the Loch Ness monster or some creepy monster was going to come out and like devour her or fight her or something like that. And I think it would be beneficial to establish it from the very beginning as a ghost story. If that's the direction that you're trying to go in, or even as a supernatural story. Like, even if I were working on this, I'd be like, I would start with her like thinking about the world and be like, I had always heard tales. I had always heard strange tales about I'd always not tales. I had strange what's that? Folklore. I always heard strange folklore about the monsters out on this lake. And I would even play up the horror, the supernatural aspect of it even more, right? So I would play up like, what do people think when they think of haunted lakes? Loch Ness monster. You don't have to be that obvious. You can think of creatures, sea creatures. It's a lake, so I wouldn't even go like pirates. I would go you can go like spirits. People have seen spirits on the lake. People seeing spirits and never returning, spirits coming to life and attacking boats. You could actually even touch upon it, but I would start off with her musing, like thinking about this, and then have this thought be interrupted with the what the hell moment, because this would better establish that the world is that this is a supernatural story. And I think that would actually really help it. So that way I'm like, okay, I'm in this is like a ghost story. And I think that would better help with establishing the overall world building of it. All right, let's see. What else do we got? I think for character development, actually. So my favorite character in this was actually the ghost, the old ghost guy. He was like, he was clear there was enough where he's like creepy old man. And I think his dialogue was clear. And I actually didn't have problems with him personally. I thought he was great. For your main character, I think I just need a little description at some point of like, who is your main character? You reference, he introduces himself, I think, as Ed. I think it's like Ned or Ed about halfway through the story. And that's fine. You don't have to necessarily reference his name sooner because you're kind of keeping this as like kind of feels like maybe like a nameless character for the most part. So that way more people can connect with it. But I would give a little bit more like indication to like what does he like? He kind of seems like a realist since he doesn't get scared by ghost stuff. And I actually think that's really cool. You touch upon that. And I think that's a really interesting character development. Do you say why he's on the lake? Is he just sailing? Makes he like sailing? It kind of feels like he's like running away from something, maybe. Because even the old ghost guy asks him, like, he asks him something that suggests that he's running from something. But then he's like, nope, I'm just coming to get some peace and quiet, which kind of makes you feel like, what is he actually running away from? So I think I would clarify that. It kind of gives me the sense that maybe he lost somebody lately. I think if I were to tie this story in a little and make it a little punchier, I would have him being on the lake because he just lost somebody. And maybe he's on the lake because he's hoping to see them and he's hoping to search for them. He's hoping that he'll see them, but he's also a realist and he doesn't believe in ghosts. Supernatural, not a thing. So that's why he thinks that he's going to be fine. You like to start with action. Yeah, so that's fine. If starting with it is important to you, and I'm actually not opposed to that because that's a really great way to hook people in, then I would do the action and then I would do the description just a little sooner. I would do the action immediately and then the description of the lake sooner. Yeah, and I think by defining, I think you need to define for yourself what his motivation is, right? Because you want his motivation to tie into the ghost concept of the creepy old man who's coming to save him, who actually died 24 years ago. So you want to think about what is the message that you want your reader to take away, other beyond it being like a ghost story. And then whatever that message is that you want your reader to take away from the story, tie that into your main character's motivation. Because it makes it stronger because we want to care about the main character just as much as we care about the obstacles that the main character is in. You did a good job with the boat overturning, though. That's a great moment, and it immediately pulls us into the story. So I actually think that was really, really well done. By the way, half mile, don't use fractions in writing. Always spelled them out. Any numbers, any numerical values beyond 10 or below 10, spell out the number. Any numerical values above 10, you can say the number itself. Yeah, and even then, for the first time in 7 years, I didn't have my pocket knife. So you do a couple things like this, it's actually some good character development. I would want to know, why does he need to carry a pocket knife? Is he like a military guy? Is he survivalist? Was the pocket knife given to him by his parent before they died? You could go in any number of directions, but I think you could actually tie this into the story a little bit. Like, it almost feels like, what if like he used a pocket knife to like help like reestablish, like help fix the boat that he's floating on? I think you could actually make it identify it as kind of like a key item for him. But I like this. I like the creepy ghost guy that works. He's like, you're just fishing for monsters. I think that's interesting. Armstrong. I think with the house, I think when you get to the section with the house, I would just set up the description of the house a little bit from her like walking up to the house. I think you say Victorian somewhere. The house had a grandmother Victorian vibe, lots of rose chintz, knickknacks, doilies. I would like, what does the house look like as she's approaching the house? She just got lost in the fog and like the fog was like dissipating. I actually would almost consider keeping the fog like everywhere. Now you could keep it tethered to the lake, but when you think of the ghost story, you want to build up the suspense as much as possible. And even though they're just like kind of old couple, do everything in your power to build a suspense, because really your climax moment is her learning that he died many years ago. And then this is like the punch. Now, usually stories need resolutions, but with ghost stories, usually the resolution is kind of like the message, and it's kind of like the scare of it. That happens in a lot of ghost stories. So it's fine that you end off here, but I think to make this last section as punchy as much, you want to find every moment you can to build up suspense. So like, what are like to make it creepier? Like, what does the Victorian house like look like? Maybe make the Victorian house kind of creepy. Maybe make the older couple kind of creepy. And use more of the fog. There's so many different things you could do. It really just depends on the direction of the story. Oh, so really trying to like tie the fog with the man in the canoe. That makes sense. Then that's fine. Use something else. Use another mechanism for to drive suspense. You could use like different weather. Like maybe it was sunny before she went on the lake, and maybe now it's like a rainstorm. Weather's an easy one. You could use descriptions. There's any number of things that you could try, but I think the driving the suspense as she's learning about this would make a huge difference as well. But yeah, other than that, I like her learning. What do you mean by that? Yeah, I think, Mammyy, that's all that I got for you. I love, love, love horror, supernatural, ghost stories. I know one of our other writers in the community, Mud Zerker, he loves doing folklore and ghost stories. So, like, thank you for sharing this. I love this type of storytelling. Yeah, always love hearing more. Eager to hear more, and I hope all this feedback helped you out. Thanks again for submitting this. Excellent. All right, another great submission. All right, perfect. So let me cue that out. The inspiration was a photo of a man in a canoe. Great inspiration. It's always exciting how we can be inspired by the most like random things. It could be inspired by an idea, a video, a picture, a life event, like anything. And I think that's absolutely incredible. That's actually really cool. And you're like, ooh, that kind of led to this like creepy ghost story. I hope like if you ever like publish this, that you use that the like cover art is like a man in a canoe. I was like, it kind of seems, or if it's like somewhere in the book, or maybe like the fog, and you can like kind of make out a man in a canoe. It's that's an interesting idea. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, who do I have next? I have, all right, Sean, I have you on deck for Fair Share by Sean Spence. And he also made sure that he wanted me to include a trigger warning. Okay, so trigger warning. So Fair Share by Sean Spence. I know Sean, let me see. So I know Sean is saying that so far we've been getting different excerpts of a script from Sean previously. I'm excited that we're getting something a little different. Same with what you did earlier, Stephanie, if you're still in the stream. I love following the same journey for a story. I also love seeing when writers expand as well, because it shows me kind of like their different types of capability in different universes. And I think that's a lot of fun. All right, perfect. So let's hop into, let me pull his up. All right, and then Sean's is a script. So Sean, I got you here. Here we go. And I know, Sean, you're probably going to be watching this on the replay. So I'll give you, I got that, and this isn't super long either. I did forget, let's see, this is a script. So let me see if, oh, that works. I was like, I changed the font and I wanted to make sure it didn't mess up the formatting of the script, but I think it's going to be fine. Perfect. All right. So we're going to hop straight into it. So once again, trigger warning. So this could be a little intense. And let me reiterate, I haven't read any of these stories beforehand. I will do like a brief like scan of them to make sure that there's to see if there's anything that I need to know beforehand, or if there's any, or to make sure it's not like too graphic. But yeah. So let me make sure I am set. I'm going to cue here. Wonderful. Awesome. And by the way, if you're just hopping into the stream, we're doing live story readings and critiques of all different types of writing. We're doing all types of genres. Today, we've touched on ghost story, fantasy, and children's story. So 3 completely different genres. I think we're about to touch on, this might be a thriller. I think we're about to touch on a thriller, it looks like. So awesome. If you want your story read, make sure to send an excerpt of your story to thecreativeghostwriter@gmail.com. I will queue it up for today. If I run out of time to get to it, it'll get added to next Saturday's stream. But if you've been joining along so far, clearly I love the reading and critiquing process. So come join the action. And also don't hesitate to drop a comment. If you're reading something and it like stands out to you, feel free to join in the conversation, because our goal is to help you make your stories as beautiful as possible. All right. Wonderful. I got that. And I also need to make sure that let me just check the email real fast. Okay, perfect. So I'm on a good roll. And excellent. Perfect. All right. So let me reset. I got the timer reset. And I'm all good. You guys can see it. Good, good, good. All right. Fair share. A grieving man finds it hard to live alone after a tragic loss. With the county fair returning and bringing up painful memories, searching for answers to his happiness may have a disastrous end. Fade in. Interior, Chet's bedroom, night. Chet Parker, 45, lies in bed. A kerosene lamp flickers on the nightstand where his rifle leans an arm's length away. His eyes quickly flicker side to side under his eyelids. Both legs forcibly kick from beneath the sheets. No, stop. Don't hurt her! Flashback 2, exterior county fair, afternoon. A red-haired girl, 7, in a white knee-length dress, holds tight a stuffed teddy bear while skipping to the latrine. As she enters, the shadow of a man slowly climbs up the side of the outhouse wall. The girl happily sings "Bluebell" from inside. As she opens the door to leave, she is knocked to the ground. She hits and kicks her faceless assailant as he tries to control her. With one swift motion, her aggressor hits her across the face. She lies motionless. The assaulter lifts her and carries her away from the fair. Back to present. Chet bolts up from the bed and grabs his rifle. The quivering kerosene light casts shadows across the empty room. At the foot of the bed lies a stuffed teddy bear, beaten up and dirty. He gently picks it up and holds it to his chest. I am so sorry. Chet begins to weep. Interior, Chet's kitchen, morning. Chet sits at a dusty kitchen table behind a sticky bowl of oatmeal and a cup of milk. Both have not been touched. Footsteps. shuffle on the front porch as a flyer glides under the door. Their stride trails off into the distance. Chet slowly reaches for the paper. In bold typeface, it reads, Mayfield County Fair, come one, come all, this weekend only, June 2nd and June 3rd, 1904. Chet crumbles up the paper and hurls it at the wall. Swinging open the front door, he sees no one. The wind whistles through the open prairie just beyond, scattered bushes of raspberries, blueberries, and blackberries. Chet slams the door, visibly shaken. Exterior, County Fair afternoon. Chet walks in through the entrance into the fair. Stone-faced, he pushes his wheelbarrow of fruit, his rifle crosses diagonally across his back. County folk gawk at the pigs and cattle being judged. In the distance, a pie-eating contest starts. Everywhere Chet turns, children walk around with cotton candy on a stick, as well as on their hands and faces. He avoids them all. Chet wheels his produce over to a lonely stand. Sloppy handwriting above the structure reads, blackberry, blueberry, strawberry, 5 cents a basket. Chet places the fruit from the wheelbarrow on the counter. Under the stand, he grabs a ladder and paint can. Chet climbs to the top rung of the ladder and dabs the paintbrush onto the paint. He modifies strawberry to read raspberry. From his new vantage point, Chet watches the crowds maze through the labyrinth of makeshift hutches and stalls. Customer. Excuse me, are you selling your produce yet? Yes. Customer 30 watches as Chet climbs down. Changed your inventory, huh? What? Oh, yeah. Hey, weren't you here last year? Yes, that was you. You had those delicious strawberries. No strawberries this year. Chet stares down the customer. Well then, a basket of raspberries would be fine if they're as good as your strawberries. While Chet collects the raspberries, he glances across the walkway where small children are gathering. They all laugh while squeezing closer into a magician doing tricks. Chet watches everyone with the magician as he pulls a quarter from behind a red-headed girl's ear. The toddler hugs the magician hard. He returns a tight embrace over her white, knee-length dress, closing his eyes just as tight. As the magician opens his eyes, they are met with Chet's. That's it for now, kids. The magician leaves the cluster of children. Chet follows. Hey, what about my raspberries? Exterior employee 10 afternoon. The magician quickly vanishes into a tent and out of sight. Chet pulls back the canvas door and peeks inside as he slowly reaches for the stock of the rifle. The magician takes a seat at a makeup mirror. He wails as he violently swipes the contents of off the counter. Where are you, Samantha? My little crumpet? I will find you, I swear! Chet's sweaty palm slowly releases the butt of the rifle. His gaze softens as he lowers the tent's entrance flap. Exterior fruit stand afternoon. Chet pulls up a stool and sits. While people pass by, he observes them all. In the distance, Chet notices a mother as she flirts with a fair worker. Michelle, 8, holds a doll by its arm while tugging her mother's dress. I really have to go, Mother. In a minute, Michelle. Can't you see I'm talking to this nice man? The woman goes back to her dalliance. Michelle looks around, deciding to go it alone. As she walks, the crowd envelops her. She gets knocked to the ground. Dust engulfs her as people walk by without helping. Finally, a hand reaches down and pulls her up. Hey there. You should not be alone out here. Where are your parents? My mother is over there. And your father? Silence. Well, you should return to your mother. Go. But I have to go to the bathroom. Chet sees the girl is desperate. He looks over at the mother, completely beguiled by the fair worker's flattery. Fine. Come with me. The little girl smiles and takes his hand. Chet forces a smile back. Chet walks the girl over to the outhouse. He looks to make sure there is no one else around. Okay, I'll keep watch out here just in case. In case of what? Nothing. Now get to it. Thanks. Michelle goes inside. Chet looks around and sees no one suspicious. He hears the girl start to sing the woodchuck song. He closes his eyes as a true smile crosses his face. Michelle opens the door, noticeably relaxed. Thanks again, mister. It's Chet. And you are? It's Michelle, but my mom. Chet backhands the girl. She falls to the ground. Chet looks around. Still no one. He picks up the unreactive Michelle, her face covered with dirt. A drop of blood begins to fall from her lip. I am so sorry. Chet pitches Michelle's limp body over his shoulder. He reaches down and picks up Michelle's doll as he turns from the fair. His shadow slowly drops from the side of the outhouse. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that. That was really good. That was a really good suspense moment. Wow. I was like, I'm kind of just like taking that in for a moment. Wow. I think what worked really well about the excerpt of the script so far is the suspense that you've set up is done really, really, really well. Yeah, because you kind of like you set up Chet as this kind of like rough and not like rough and tumble, but he's kind of this more like kind of like the revenge seeking father. You set him up as the revenge seeking father who it feels like has lost a daughter. You set up the beginning. Yeah, no, stop, don't hurt her. The beginning is really well set up. Clearly he's having a nightmare in bed, flashbacks to the redheaded girl. And I love that you do the same exact thing with this other girl who's singing a different song. So it's kind of like setting it up as it's like the same, the same type of situation. And you did a great job. What's the right word? You did a really good job. Disrupting expectation of subverting. You did a great job of subverting expectation because we see this and it's assumed that this is an assailant and this story is about Chet having to go track down and hunt down the killer, and it's going to be like maybe a Taken sort of deal where he's like the father has to go find his daughter. So like you did a really good job because that's what we're expecting. So I would say hands down, world building and the plot and the narrative are very, very well done in this piece. You know exactly, you know what the world is, and I can tell you know exactly what plot you want to share. So that's really, really well done. At the foot of his bed, yeah, because you had the stuffed teddy bear. So that's why now we assume we make the connection that, oh, that was probably her daughter that some assailant stole. And him saying, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. We're assuming that it's like, oh, he didn't save her. So that was actually really well done. Really, really well done. A redheaded girl. Interesting. So that was good. I just want to say I love this. This was a great, great moment. I think some of the options were just a couple of like some formatting, just some technical formatting things. Footsteps. I'm pretty sure when you describe both have not been touched. Footsteps shuffle on the front porch. I think the correct formatting for if you want to highlight things, I don't think it's capitalizing, because then if you capitalize, I think in script, we're assuming that it's actually a scene, a description, or an action, or not that a scene. It's like the setup of a scene or a character name. So for that reason, I don't think we capitalize. I think it would be, I think you could bold. Bold would probably be a better choice, or italicizing it. Yeah, because especially when there's like sounds, or if there's something we want our reader to pay attention to, I think what I would do is I would bold and italicize it. But usually once it becomes a shooting script, sound effects all become italicized, I believe. And it's same with this thing right here. I don't believe that you use quotes. I'd have to go back and check my like script knowledge again. I'm pretty sure you don't use quotes. Now, we also need to recognize quotation marks are used differently in scripts as they would be used in a story, because it's obvious when characters speaking, this is a complete different format. But I don't believe that you would use quotes in this situation. In bold typeface, I think you would just highlight it like this. Chet slowly reaches for the paper. In bold typeface, it reads. And I think you would go like that. You could even like bold that if you really wanted to highlight it, but the bold would just be a more reader choice. But I'm pretty sure you would do it like this, because this makes it clear what we're reading. Maybe italicize. I would have to research on, or I'd have to look up on what was the right way to do that, but I don't believe that you use quotation marks. Chet crumbles up. Him crumbling the paper is good. The action is great. Chet slams the door. You do good job with his character development. You set up the county fair well. Everyone, children walk around the cotton candy on a stick, as well as their hands and faces. He avoids them all. This is good. I think if you wanted to push the suspense a little bit, Sean, I would add another thing here of him running into a child, because I always like to use rule of threes. Rule of threes. So we set up the first character. We set up the first. We assumed his daughter in the first section. I think if he has a run-in, even if it's short with another child with cotton candy who he like plows into an accident or who runs into him, I think that would help build up suspense, and then also be like, make him like want to cry or maybe do something of like, go to your parents or something like that. But I think that would be a good tension for right there. And this was just, I was referencing, quotation marks again. I would say, Sean, I don't delete this part. This is more like a storytelling thing. It's assumed that he points it up here that now he's probably watching. And essentially you're going to have him watching the next part with the magician. So I don't think this is necessary here. I think I would do that and then just have the customer interrupting him. And that's more just to cut down on wordiness from a script storytelling perspective. The customer thing is good. That works. Yeah, and he references him being last year. That was important. That's fine. Then the magician thing is good. You actually did touch upon the kid. You used this redheaded girl as technically a second child. Kind of interesting. This is good. But the focus of this is more on the magician than it is the kids. I still think it would be powerful to have him touch upon run into the kid in this early section. I think that would build up suspense a little bit more, honestly. So that way him running into a kid is mirrored in the next one with the girl. Because this is more focused on the magician. He glances, Chet walks away as he pulls a quarter from me. I like that. The magician leaves the cluster of children. This is funny. I was like, I laughed. That's funny. He doesn't care about the raspberries. He cares about the magician who's maybe doing something evil to children. Good. A crumpet, I'll find you. Gotcha. So then we see here, the magician's lost a kid. Powerful. Really, really powerful. That's good. Then you're like, oh, the killer. We thought the magician was potentially the child napper. No, it happened to him. Chet pulls back and peeks inside his socks. The magician takes a seat at a makeup mirror. He wills as he violently swipes the contents off the counter. I would up the suspense, and this is just an idea. Have the magician pull something from his pocket. Have Chet pull the finger on the gun prepared, and the magician pulls out a picture of his daughter. Just an idea. That's great. That's like a visual, really good cinematic thing to do. As he's saying this, I think that would up the suspense even more. The fruit stand is good. So the whole thing with Michelle and the mother is great. Michelle, 32, she holds, Chet notices a mother. Michelle, 8, holds a doll by its arm while tugging her mother's dress. Since Michelle's going to be, it sounds like a bigger character, at least for these next chapters, I would give Michelle a little bit more description. Beyond her, that she's 8, who is she? And actually, usually for scripts, you actually want, anytime you introduce a character, you actually always want to give them description, now that I think about it. Because the reason you're describing a character is actually more so when, if it gets picked up to by a producer, they need to have a description of the character so they can give it to the casting director, who's then going to put all the character descriptions back to back and then do the casting. So even if it's like a mundane character, mother 32, brown hair, blue eyes. Mother 32, hardworking woman, easily distracted. Even if it's short, I would always include descriptions. Chat, my mother's over there. This is all good. And this is good. So like he tries to convince her to return to the mother or to the parents. I think I could even elevate this moment even more by having Michelle say something that would be that like a child would say something very cutesy. Be like, my mother is over there and your father, well, you should go, but I have to go to the bathroom. I can't wait. Like maybe make a reference to some like child fairy tale or child thing that a child would know, specifically because I think it would be helpful to create an even like a highlight moment of Michelle. Oh, have Michelle clutch her clutch the stuffed animal. Doesn't she has a stuffed animal? But I have to go to the bathroom. Whispering, but I have to go to the bathroom, and Dolly has to go too. Easy peasy, because then it kind of creates, we want to have that like increase the suspense even more by Chet like seeing that stuffed animal, being like, okay, I'll take you. I think that would help. Chet walks over to the girl, likes to make sure there's no one else around. Good. This is all good. Michelle goes inside. This is great. Just no quotes. This is the same exact situation as the first one. This Chet and you are. Did they get names earlier on? No, they did not. And this is the moment where I was like, wow. Oh my God, that was crazy. I was like, Chet backhands the girl. I think I stopped in the reading and I like looked back to make sure that I like didn't misread it. And then I realized in this moment when I thought about it, I'm like, wait, you haven't actually defined that Chet was the father of the girl in the first scene. We assumed based on all the clues. So I want to say, Sean, this is an excellent example of subverting expectation and trailing enough clues to lead the audience to believe that Chet was the father, when in reality, something way, way deeper is going on. And like here, like this is only page 6, right? So this leads me to believe that either Chet is the killer, or like I think because you've set him up as the main character so far, I don't think he's necessarily the killer, but I think there's a lot more going on that we don't know. Maybe he is. It's hard to determine this early on, but really great work. I'm like, I want to know, like, who is Chet? Is he the killer, or does he have to do some like trade off, or is there like, ooh, what's going on? Did he kill the first girl? I was like, dang, I like having all the questions. And these are the right questions that you want your audience to be asking. So really great work. Really, really great work. I think overall the script is well done. I think there's just a lot of opportunities to elevate the suspense even more so to make it as engaging as possible, in addition to some of like the structural things that I mentioned. So really great work. Thanks again for sending another one. I love suspense and thrillers, so this is definitely the type of thing that I would watch. Thank you, my friend. All right. Excellent. Wonderful. That was a fun little read. Perfect. And yeah. Oof. Oh man. Okay, so that was good. All right. So what are we at? 240. Okay, let me see on deck. Who do I have next? I got Ketan. Ketan, I got the Jumboree on deck. So I got you up next, my friend. Now, I'm pretty sure I saw you in the comments earlier. Just say hi if you're here. Let me know that you're in the stream. And once again, like, of course, this is like, you don't necessarily have to be here live to be involved in it. I think if you are here, it just gives me a better idea of how to give comments. It makes it collaborative, but this can be a collaborative thing, or you'll still get value from it even if you're watching on the replay. Excellent. Welcome, welcome, my friend. Okay, so before I pull up your script, or not your script, your story, let me do I'm going to do a really quick plug here. So one of the things that I see that a lot of writers need now, so far, I've been advertising my editing services. But editing is like, we need an editor when our story is at a certain point, usually once it's gone through a few drafts and it's ready to take it to that like final draft stage. Usually there's that need for that at a specific point in time. Today, I actually wanted to highlight a different service that I'm offering, which is my writing coaching service. So this service is perfect for stories that are still early on in the developmental stage. And I have 3 questions for you to ask yourself. Do you need a writing coach? Question number 1. Do I need help with my story in one of the following areas of creative writing? Character, dialogue, world building, plot, or structure? If the answer is yes, you would benefit from a writing coach. Question number 2. Do I want to speed up the writing process so I can publish my book 3 times faster? If the answer is yes, then you would benefit from a writing coach. Question number 3. Do I struggle with writing consistently or holding myself accountable to write? If the answer is yes, then you would benefit with a writing coach. So the way that I package my writing coaching service, I will charge per hour. And essentially, I work with you through either Zoom calls, emails, messaging, whatever works for you. And basically, we work on, imagine as you're writing your story, if you can get live feedback and same day editing, so that way your story is evolving day by day, as compared to doing the entire process and then doing an editing on the back end. So this is a service that I offer for writers who are still in the early development stage of their stories to really speed up the process. So I wanted to highlight that. I'm probably going to create like a survey at some point and actually do this as a questionnaire. But yeah, so if you're looking for a writing coach, message me and we can chat more with like details so I can really better understand what is the value that you need for your project. Okie dokie. So with that plug out of the way, reading number 5, the Jumboree with Ketan. Okay, so let's see. Let me get yours pulled up. Okay. Let's see, Ketan. Still here at 4 a.m. It's worth. Oh, Ketan. That's right. It's so much later for you over there. I'm I know. And this is always my challenge with when I pick the times of my shows. I always try to ask myself, when is the best time that's going to reach the most number of people? Now, I know the majority of viewers who are watching are predominantly from the States, the Central and the East Coast. I am playing around with some ideas and making things a little earlier to help my international audience, because I know I do have some viewers from, I want to say UK, I think Australia. By the way, if you're here in the stream, where what part of the world are you in? Just like drop a comment. I would love to hear. I'm kind of always curious where viewers are coming from during, especially the reading show. So, but thanks for staying up, my man. I've been looking forward to digging into the next part of your story. Okay, so let's see. India, yeah, and I think let's see. So it looks like we got India, New England. Ooh, actually, I've never been to New England. SoCal, what's up? Atomic. I was living in Los Angeles for 10 years. Like I know California very well. New York. Okay, nice. So it looks like we got a couple. We got kind of a mix around the states, and then a little international as well. And Colombia. We also got Colombia. I love it. So we got like a nice mix here. I love that so much. When I started on this creative writing journey, I had just assumed that it was going to be people who are on like the Pacific Coast who are going to be watching. And then as I've been doing research and putting things out there, I'm like, no, creative writing is an international language. And I love that because we get to see stories from all around the world. And our stories are ingrained in our experience, our culture, the things that we've gone through. And I feel like it opens our imaginations to just different types of storytelling. It's like, I love that. Atomic, I think I have family near you too in Meridian. Yes, yeah. So I'm about 2 hours north of Meridian. I just like little about me. I grew up in California, so I've been in California 95% of my life, and then recently moved out to Idaho. I want to say end of last year when I was just like I hit a point in my life where I've been working like the 9 to 5 that day job for a while, and I got so miserable. And it's like I worked for that Starbucks for a really long time, and it was less about Starbucks because I enjoyed coffee. But I just hit a point in my life where I wasn't getting the creative stuff, the creative part of me that I really need. And some people can do it. And I was also in a position where I was able to do this, but I just got so depressed, so anxious. And I hit a point where it's just like, I have to do something different. So I quit the day job. I did something very like unnormal for people. I quit the day job completely and I moved out of state with family. So that way I could afford to start a writing business. So that way I'm taking a couple of years to really establish a creative writing business, which I hope to be able to connect and reach as many creative writers out there. So, and like, even as I look back and like being doing like freelance work and doing this type of like journey, I've been an employee my entire life. So doing this predominantly, it's one of like the most terrifying and the most rewarding experience ever. And even as I look back on it, I'm like, is there anything I would have done differently? And the answer is absolutely not. Best decision I ever made. Whether I succeed or whether I fail, I will never regret the journey. So I'm very excited. Thank you all for joining me, not just for today, but thank you all for joining the community because I really value the stories that you bring and I value learning about your experiences. So thank you for that. Okay, my diatribe out of the way. Okay, so with that, let's hop into the Jumboree. Okay, so Ketan, we got the Jumboree. So if you guys have been here in our past couple of, if you've been showing up to some of the previous Saturday reading and critique shows, we've actually hopped into a couple sections of Ketan's story before. And I want to say we've gone into the same section a couple times. And I think the thing that I really appreciate, Ketan, is that you submit the story, you take the feedback, you improve the story, and then you bring it back for another iteration. And I actually love that because that is the storytelling process there. That is how you bring an idea to a rough draft, second draft, final draft, and then you get it ready to be published. So like, I just want to really commend and recognize the effort because you are doing more than a lot of other writers out there are even able or willing to do, whether it's a lack of time, lack of confidence, or lack of ability. So really great work on that part. I think that's important to highlight. Stephanie, yes, I do have a Discord. I'd have to like, I was like, I forgot what my Discord name is because I don't use it as often. I don't know. Maybe I'll set up like a Discord writing community. That'd actually be kind of cool. I think I've seen people do that. Let me ask, if I said, for all you guys who are in the stream, if I said a Discord, would all y'all get a value out of that? I'm like, I try to think about how I would like run what I would do with a writing Discord. I'm of the type where if I'm going to set up like a new system, I would only want to set it up if I felt like it was going to bring value with the amount of time that it would take me to involve. So, but yeah, I'll get back to you on what it is. I have to remember what my Discord name is. It's probably like Kauffman JK or something like that. Usually most of my handles I start with Kauffman or the creative ghostwriter. Okay, so let's see. I got Ketan's. You are all pulled up here. Now, let me see. So the last time we went into Ketan's story, we went over the first section with Yudi, and we actually got some really great work on it done. Now, due to the time, I think I only went through about the first half of it or the first section. So what we're going to do is we're going to be continuing on into the next section of the story where we had left off, and just continuing on the critique. Let's see. And I need to find my place. Probably just should have said it as the beginning, but oh well. It's the way the cookie crumbles. Okay. So we're going to be starting off with the town section. I think I had gotten a little bit into it, but I think for storytelling purposes, we're just going to start at the beginning of this, the town setup, because I think that's really the beginning of the story beat. Was like, no, I don't. Did we get into environment unfriendly activities? Yeah, I was trying to see how far we had gotten into, because I know we had done some of the description for Trishul Gut. And I think we actually did get into some of it. I want to make sure, Ketan, that I can get through as much of your story as possible. Okay, so actually, I think we're going to start. I think we already did the setup for the town. And I think, because I know you did I know we went over the description. I remember giving you the feedback now. And we had touched about the description. So let's start in on the plot of it, the action, because I want to try to get through as much of this as possible. Okay. All right, so we're going to start here. Now, I know, Ketan, one of your requests was you wanted me to prioritize on making sure that I'm aware of when you're showing or when you're telling. And I think this is actually a really powerful concept, because in storytelling, like we want all of our stories, obviously, to show the reader what's happening. We don't want to tell them the man walked into a ditch and he fell. Right? That's easy. We want them to feel how the man falls into a ditch through description, through the way he feels, through what we hear, through the senses. So showing versus telling is really good. And I'll make sure to make sure that that's one of the things I'm aware of as I'm reading this. Yeah. I'll start with this one. I think this is a good starting point. Okay. Let me get my highlighter. Cool. Okay. All right. I'm all set. So, The Jumboree by Ketan Solanki. On a very routine but optimistic note, one day when the townsmen were all busy in their respective work, and the bazaar and the port and the forges were in their peak hours, a royal crier, in all his demeanor, paraded in at the crying place in the middle of the town. Everyone who heard the bugles and drums gathered around the crying place and gave attention to him as he proclaimed, a Jumboree, and that the trading would remain closed for 3 days. One curious man in the crowd could not stop himself, asking out of haste, Have we gotten our heir to the throne? You have no right to interrupt me while I'm speaking, replied the crier arrogantly, and continued. Princess Lavanya is returning home after completing her martial arts training, and this is the time to celebrate the return of the princess. Everyone has to take part and enjoy. And the cavalry went back with the fading sounds of bugles and drums. The whispers then became louder and spread across the whole town like an epidemic. The people who were puzzled by the strangers in the town and the activities going near the river were then relaxed. Everybody was eagerly waiting for the event to open. It was going to open on the next day after the proclamation. As per the schedule, the 2-day extravaganza started early in the second prahar of the next day. The morning seemed very exciting. To everyone, but not for two rugged companions, D, Dushyant, and Shashank, as they were not going to be involved in any celebration without Yudi, who was more than a brother to them. Both friends had 2 days respite after a long time from their toils at the sawmill, and were settled at their camp in the quiet solitude of the woods near the bank of the mother Brahmaputra, where the carnival was organized. Both had somewhat similar looks, except the face. Shawshank had a long face with a strong jawline, whereas D had a round, chubby face. Their bodies, honed by labor, boast sinewy muscles and weathered skin, evidence of years spent amidst the raw power of the forest. Their long hair, unkempt and wild, fall in untamed waves around their shoulders, a testament to their untamed spirits. They were having a good time by their campfire. Shawshank felt ecstatic as he inhaled the petrichor deeply to his soul. The scent of liquor made of mahua, honey tree flower, mingled with this earthy aroma of the surrounding woods as D opened the wineskin, making the air citrusy and more soothing. Their laughter echoed through the trees as they recounted tales of their adventures with Yudi and shared hearty banter. Do you remember, we used to swim against the current of the mother Brahmaputra, and more often where the river was the wildest? Asked D as he gulped the first wooden goblet of liquor. Of course I remember. How can we forget those early days of adolescence? Replied Shawshank, reminiscing the old days, and continued. What these poor little competitors think of themselves. If Yudi were here, he would win every competition. These men stand nowhere against him. Beside them, their loyal companions, two sturdy stallions grazed. Beside them, their two loyal companions. Two sturdy stallions grazed contentedly, mirroring the easy camaraderie between the two friends. Shawshank and D were missing Yudi. The townsmen were ready to enjoy the carnival. Many martial artists from across the empire came to perform their arts, and many magicians with their awe-inspiring magic. There were many competitions held like swimming, horse racing, etc. And the prize money for winners was attractive. Not only that, but people were enthused by the mouth-watering royal dishes, the food they never saw before, even free in the food bazaar. That was noisy and bursting at the seam with people. Everything was free in the Jumboree, except some of the fine breeds of horses, but that even at the lowest price. Well, some people were relishing the food, shocking martial arts moves, and jaw-dropping magic. Others, on the other hand, were cheering up for the competitions. Some were amazed by the speed of swimmers, and some were cheering for their horse to win, unaware of the impending danger lurking ahead. Suddenly, the cheering converted into the screams, "Ah!" And people started running here and there in horror as one of the horses went berserk, creating chaos in the crowd. And on the other hand, a giant shark emerged from the depths of the river, attacking wildly on the swimmers. Panic spread like a wildfire as people scrambled to safety, trampling over each other in their frantic attempts to escape the two mad creatures' path. This chaos caught the attention of Shawshank and Dee, who were spending the evening with their beloved liquor in the camp. "What was that? What was that?" asked Dee in a bafflement. "Wow, there are no tigers here, and no fish can roar," reciprocated Shawshank. After hearing that roar, they galloped on their stallions toward the place. They seemed completely in a drunken stupor to the other people, but alcohol was a kind of energy drink for them. Shawshank calmed down two injured men on the way and helped them sit at a safe place, whereas Dee ran straight to the river, snatching a spear from a man in the crowd, and jumped into the water, stabbing the giant shark in its neck. Everything fell silent for a short time, and people were cheering, "Bravo, bravo, bravo," for Dee as he saved a man from that monster. But that monster was not died. It's not dead, and it attacked Dee more aggressively, as if it were immortal. Meanwhile, Shawshank also rushed there and jumped into the water. He hugged the monster and looked straight into its eyes. The eyes were red, and still, it literally came out that it was bewitched. Shawshank started chanting some words in a whisper and broke the magic. No sooner did he break the magic than it died. Both came out of the water exhausted. "Thank you, brother. If you didn't come, I would be a dead man. It nearly killed me," said Dee, breathing heavily. Shawshank also replied in an interval, my pleasure." However, their fight had not yet ended, as the mad horse was still running, threatening people. Shawshank now knew what to do with the horse. He gave the same treatment to the horse. After this furious fight, both were getting sober, so they decided to go to the Hakim's, the only multi-purpose haberdashery on the route, leading toward the other villages. "Arrange a wagon and bring the injured people to Hakim's. We are also heading there," told Shawshank to a group of people. While on the way, Shawshank mused, "How is it possible to bewitch animals like that? And who the hell is this? What is his purpose?" The situation was different for Shawshank because he just came to know that someone was practicing dark arts in the region. He only could guess that the animals were bewitched, as he himself was a latent necromancer in the town. People were calling it a day, scared and exhausted. After all, it was a hell of a day for them, as they hadn't seen such monsters in their life. The royal guards were moving the carcasses in bewilderment, as they too hadn't seen anything like that before. The moon hung low in the sky, which was yet curtailed, waiting to be full in some days on the way, casting a dim ethereal light over the deserted streets of the town. As the carnival wound down, the bustling bank of the mother Brahmaputra began to empty. The dark descended faster that day than a normal summer day, and it was strange for the townsmen. Lanterns flickered weakly, their glow barely enough to illuminate the cobblestone paths that wound through the narrow alleyways. As the townsmen were going home, at some distance, there was some perturbed chattering. Two couples realized with horror that they lost their daughters in the frenzy of the chaos. Have you seen my daughter? A middle-aged couple asked two different individuals on the way. This couple met yet another couple who was in the same misery. They happened to know each other. We are unable to find Alia, told one couple, crying to the other. So do we. Mohini, too, is nowhere to be found, reciprocated the other couple and continued. Let us find them together. Our daughters might be in trouble as dusk is almost on the brink of night. Both couples harangued the passersby and screamed for their newborn daughters. Alia, Ahalia, Mohini. Soon many people gathered and frantic searches ensued, with flaming torches casting eerie shadows as they scoured every corner of the town. Some brave men thought that the girls might have mistakenly gone toward the forbidden jungle, and if so, they would be in grave danger. That jungle was forbidden because no one who went there came back ever. So despite being scared to the bone, the men even went to the entry of the jungle. However, their efforts went astray. Everybody, along with the parents of the girls, went home hoping that the girls might have reached to home. But alas, they were not even at their home. Ahalia and Mohini were childhood friends, and they were nubile and virgin. Earlier, while they were enjoying in the carnival, someone was keeping an eye on them. When the water monster attacked, these girls got separated from their parents in the deafening commotion and chaos. They somehow wanted to get rid of that havoc and meet their parents as soon as possible. In that effort, they ran out of the carnival as other people were doing so. After some time, they realized that they had gone far from the carnival and they didn't know where. The girls were in a panic as they saw a man rushing toward them. I know your parents. They ran this side. They were asking about you. I think you should also go in that direction to meet them, told the strangers to the girls. The girls looked at each other and nodded in agreement on the man's suggestion. They ran in the direction the man showed, but even after quite a long run, they were unable to find their parents. Before they could realize that the stranger misled them, it was already dark. Now, the girls were terribly in horror. Suddenly, they saw two drunkards coming toward them in drunken feet. The drunkards also saw the girls in the dimly moonlit alley, stopped drinking, and ran to grab them. As two lonely girls was a great opportunity to satiate their lust. The girls ran into the jungle to hide, unaware that it was the forbidden jungle. Ahalia and Mohini kept going further as the drunkards were getting closer. The girls saw a big tree whose trunk was fourfold thicker than a normal young tree and hid behind it on the spur of the moment. The drunkards passed by the girls without a hint of them as they were highly intoxicated, and the girls exhaled with relief. However, relief was short-lived. The situation was graver for them because when looked around, they found themselves in the middle of a jungle. Now, the girls were confused about how to get out of the jungle, and before they could guess anything, there was a sudden sound of rushing wind and crackling energy. In the blink of an eye, a swirling vortex of otherworldly hues that seemed to defy logic and reason appeared before them. From its depths emerged a group of masked men, their figures outlined against the shimmering backdrop of the portal. One of the masked men blew some basma, ash, that was made of black datura and had strong sedative properties. Soon, the girls fell unconscious, and they seized the girls, vanishing back into the portal. Meanwhile, the drunkards who were chasing the girls stood aghast as they saw this horrific incident. They decided to run from the sight, but no sooner did they turn back than the stranger who misled the girls was in front of them, giving them a sinister smile. The portal reappeared, and the masked men took the drunkards, also in the same way. Bum, bum, bum. Reading and ooh, that is interesting. You've set up like that. That's actually a really interesting plot. I'm like, I really want to know more about this like masked man now. And then like, so he's like him and this like group of like evil like robe guys that can like have like magic and travel through portals. And I know you talk about like a type of like demonic or chaos magic earlier on. That was really cool, actually. I'm really, really intrigued by the magic of this world. Yeah, I'm really liking. And then I mean, like, you could tell with the magic earlier on that the characters the evil animals in the Jumboree scene were possessed. That was interesting. I'm really liking what you're doing with the world building. You have a really good way of setting up some of these areas and setting up the description for some of these characters. And the choices that you're making with the plot is actually really interesting. I'm like really intrigued by this plot. You had these like, so you have a couple of characters. You've set up a couple of characters. You set up Yudi, who Yudi's was in the previous excerpt reading. But I know that's where the story starts. And then now you have the two other drunkard characters. You have D and Shawshank. I like Shawshank. You have D and Shawshank. And then you have some of these other supporting characters. You have the evil drunkard characters. You have some townspeople. And then you have this like evil, like robed antagonist. So you've set up some really interesting characters in it. And I think, Ketan, what I would say is there's moments which I've highlighted where you've actually done a really good job of describing it, of showing. And then there's some moments where there's some opportunities. So let's dig into what we just went through. Let's see. Carnival. Yes. Okay. So Royal Cardinal's demeanor paraded in at the crying place. Is that an actual description? Is the crying place an actual like the crying place? I might just reword this. I mean, that might be subjective. This might be a subjective opinion. I'm like, can it be a crying place? I mean, a crier is essentially he's sharing the news. Paraded in at the crying place. I might reword this to like the announcement or like the stadium or the arena or just the stage. Something about that, just word choice. Everyone who heard the bugles and drums. So with this one, I think this is a good opportunity where you're telling them about the bugles and drums. I think you could actually show them. I think you could do an opportunity to show them of parading at the crying place in the middle of the town. Let me make sure you can see. Perfect. All right, so let me make sure. So everyone who heard the bugles and drums, instead of telling us about it, you could say loud bugle. Let's see. Bang, bang, bang. You could actually even use sound. Bang. And if you do sound ever, you would do it in italics. Bang or bong, bong, bong. You could go that route. The loud sounds of bugles, or the loud sounds, the loud drum beats. And I'm just coming up with like a random description for these sounds, and they are in italics. The loud drum beats and the sound of bugles caused everyone to gather around. So this is just one example. This is kind of okay for now. So this is kind of just one example, Ketan, how I would go about showing this, right? Obviously, I'm exaggerating this a little bit, but in this description, I'm using the sound itself as the description to show this like moment that's happening to them. The other way, like it works, but the other way does a little bit more telling rather than showing. Okay, so let's see, gather around the crying place and gave attention to them. Let's keep going. One curious man cannot stop himself. Have we gotten our... Oh, and Ketan, this is another structural thing. Anytime anyone speaks, quotation marks. So this is a big, like, huge rule in storytelling. Dialogue always has to be quotation marks. Whereas if you're like highlighting something, like somebody, like you're talking about someone saying something in the past tense, then you could use these commas. So like if he was saying, have we gotten our heir to the throne? The man was annoyed that the crier interrupted him. I think the man was annoyed that the crier interrupted him. That would be another way where you could use you could use commas like that. So that's just a random formatting thing. But the crier arrogant and continued. I like what you actually do with the crier. I think the arrogant crier is actually interesting. Ketan, have you thought about, so like this crier scene's is a really good setup for what's about to happen. Have you considered having Shawshank and D have you thought about incorporating them into this scene specifically? I think it might actually give it a little bit better flow of like, they don't necessarily need a talk per se, but like, what if they're like watching, or if they're like hearing it from a distance? It might actually make it a little bit better flow. Then you don't have to change sections. But just subjective idea. If they're hearing what's going on here. Cavalry went back and forth with the fading sounds of bugles and drums. The whispers then became louder and spread across the whole town like an epidemic. This is a great use of showing. And I really love your use of description here. The whispers then became louder and spread across the whole town like an epidemic. Great word choice. That makes it really clear. I love that. So a question I had here in terms of just like the logistics. So as per the schedule, is going to open. What is the schedule? How do the townsfolk know about the schedule? Do the cavalry like post up a schedule? Like, do they post up like a parchment paper on like a pole? That would make the schedule a little clearer, but how do we know what the schedule is? And the cavalry went back and forth with the fading sounds of bugles and drums. A lone cavalry man posted the schedule, or the schedule of events, to the town message board. Just an example, but whatever you want to call it. But I think that'd make it a little clearer. And then I would be setting up here is going to open up the next day. And then it would actually make sense. The people who are puzzled by the strangers in the town activities, they're getting excited because now they can also see like clearly things are happening. They can see the schedule of events. And then this makes sense for how they know what's going to happen on the next day. Unless it was incorporated in the proclamation. I didn't mention it as a whole. Okay. So you didn't. Okay. That makes sense. Let's see. Yeah, then if that's the case, Ketan, then just to not like confuse readers, I would just say, I would actually just cut that schedule part out and then say the two-day extravaganza started early in the second prahar of the next day. And then that way you don't even need to worry about defining schedule. And then I love this. I actually really love the setup you did for D and Shashank. D Deshant. Oh, and by the way, Ketan, for D's character, you only need to really set up his description in parentheses the first time. Later times, you don't need to use the parentheses every single time. If D is how you want him to be referred to, use D. Whereas if you want him to be referred to as Deshant, then use Deshant. First time works great. Other times, now we've already gotten the gist of it. And then also, like, I think it comes down to how does D want to be referred to? Do people call him, does he prefer people to call him D, or does he prefer people to call him Deshant? I'm assuming it's D, but just food for thought. I love the description that you added for them talking about Yudi. And I think because Yudi was set up as really the protagonist in the beginning section, I thought that this was actually really, really interesting. And they're kind of like reminiscence over Yudi and his absence. I actually think works out really well. And then you describe both of the characters, which is good, except the fish. Shawshank had a long face with a strong jawline, whereas D had round, chubby face. Perfect. But you can tell they're both very muscular. That's great. They're long, unkempt, and wild. Fallen, untamed. Their long hair, unkempt and wild, this would be fell and untamed waves around their shoulders, a testament to their untamed spirits. This was perfect description. I wanted to highlight this because this was a great way of showing what they looked like. Their shoulders. And I love used a testament to their untamed spirits. Perfect. I love that description. I think that's awesome. They were having a good time at the campfire, the son of liquor. It's good. I actually like when you mention things like mahua. Like, I have no clue what that means. And the fact that you use the honey tree in parentheses, that was perfect. That makes it easy to be a reader. Really great job. Their laughter echoed through the trees, the current tales of their adventures. Yep. Yep, this is good. Of course, I remember. Of course, I remember. How can I forget these early days of adolescence? Yeah, so you can tell this is just their like brief little exchange. They're reminiscing. You touch upon their stallions, which is good. Yeah, I don't even think you need to say that they're missing Yudi. I think it's obvious that they miss Yudi because you're showing already. You don't even need to say that. Historic. Just idea recommendation. What if they cheers? It kind of feels like this feels like a little like camaraderie moment of like, let's toast to Yudi or toast to the good times. It kind of seems like something that these characters would do since they're kind of reminiscing. And it seems like it might be a good like moment there. You go back to the carnival, which is good. And this is good. So you're describing everything that's happening here. Some were amazed with the speed of swimmers, and some are cheering for their horses. I think with this paragraph, I would just break this paragraph up. I'm just saying the description of the competition. I think I would break it up there. I think I'd break it up like that, just so that we don't have the large chunks of text. And I think that way, like, once again, like, and this is always the interesting with paragraph and structure. Sometimes you can have an idea that you're exploring and it would actually, and the paragraph could last like a couple pages. Realistically, like, sure, it could happen. But from a reader's perspective, if I see an entire page of just text, you chance losing your reader. So I think when we can find opportunities to split up paragraphs, we should do so. So that way it doesn't feel like too much. Now, also keep in mind that what I have on the screen, the text is blown up way more. So like, don't base it off what you're seeing here, but I think just keep in mind as you're writing on your word processing program, try not to have paragraphs that really last more than half a page is my recommendation. Writers do it sometimes, it can be done, but once again, make it easier for your reader. And then we go to everything was free on the Jumboree except from the horses. Good. And then suddenly the cheering converted into screams. Oh, we don't need to do that. And now we start with some were amazed by the speed of swimmers and aware of the impending danger. So now we have these beasts and a giant shark. So as one of the horses went berserk, creating chaos in the crowd. And on the other hand, a giant shark emerged from the depths of the river. So awesome. So I love you have two problems, right? So the horses go berserk. And so there's a berserk horse and then a giant shark. I would actually, or as one of the horses went berserk, and on the other hand, a giant shark emerged. Actually, you don't really, one of the horses went berserk. I'm trying to think. I'm just like, I'm kind of giving it some thought. I think if I were to make this a little more, I mean, it's interesting because it's action. Berserk horse, giant shark. I'm trying to think of if I would give a little more description, but I don't think it's necessary right now. Panic spread as people scramble to safety, trampling over each other in frantic attempts to escape the two. Yeah, no, that's fine. I actually like this because I liked this setup. I just wanted to say that I liked this. This chaos caught the attention. Yep, this works. And then here you would just say, what was that? Ask D, baffled. I think baffled would be the correct tense choice for that. Yeah, no, I totally get that. I honestly, I think it was fine. I think I was asking myself, would I recommend adding more description for what the creatures look like, but I don't think it's necessary. And I think this is funny, right? Well, there are no tigers here and no fish can roar. So that was funny. Oh, here, I would just describe them hopping onto their stallions. After hearing that roar, they hopped onto their stallions and galloped toward the palace. And that's just a minor clarification. They seemed completely in a drunken stupor to other people, but alcohol was a kind of energy drink for them. So I think this is an example you're kind of telling and kind of showing. I would actually say they swing. I would reword this sentence and say they swayed back and forth in their saddles. They swayed back and forth in their saddles, looking like they were going to fall off. Appearing like they might fall off due to the alcohol. Like they might fall off in a drunken stupor. Right? So this one would actually show it a little bit more. Instead of telling people they're in a drunken stupor, I'm giving them an action and I'm saying the drunken stupor. The people. And then I could then say alcohol, unbeknownst to people, alcohol was a kind of energy drink for them. There you go. So that would actually give a little more description. And then you have them saving them, jumped in the water. Also, another recommendation, I would actually add, so the two girls that you have later on in the story, I would actually introduce them during the chaos. Because what you do is you go back later on and you introduce them. I would actually introduce them here, but I just introduced them as like minor characters during the chaos. And I think it would work before this bafflement, before Shawshank and D come in. Right here, spreading panic. I would add a paragraph of like two girls And you could introduce the names, you couldn't. Two girls were nearly trampled by one of the beasts, by one of the beasts, fleeing the village in in a panic. I think it would be important. I think it could work if you set up the girls here and then later on you can refer to it. So that way, like it creates kind of a good suspense, and it kind of builds it, because right now we don't think the girls are important, but then later on in the next section we're like, oh wow, they're going to be captured by these like portal magic people. So I would recommend that here. And you could do a little more description, but I think it's powerful to introduce them here. The kind of energy drink, good. I think this is good, right in a neck. I would make sure, oh, nope. I would make this a new paragraph. There you go, because this is the end of the action. He stabs the shark in the neck, and then everything falls silent. And then he's cheered, but that monster was not dead. Oh no, it was just a fake. The monster attacks. And then because this is a separate action, new paragraph. So you want to separate actions, especially if they're in different areas. So that way we know that different things are happening, right? This makes it a little clearer now. Giant shark attack. Oh, D1. No, just kidding. The giant shark is still attacking D. Meanwhile, Shawshank's also fighting the other. Shawshank's also trying to rush in. So this was a question that I had to you, Ketan, that I think would benefit you answering to the reader. How does Shawshank know that the creature is bewitched? The eyes were red and still. It literally came out that it was bewitched. I think the sentence just needs to be reworded. I think right now it's just a little confusing. The eyes were red and still. It literally came out that it was bewitched. I think just like, to me, just the wording of it is just a little confusing. I would say he knew when he saw the eyes, when the eyes, the red eye, since the eyes were red and still, he knew the creature was bewitched. Literally as simple as that. I think that would just make it a little clearer. I think this just needs to be reworded more than anything. Shawshank started chanting some words in a whisper and broke the magic. And that's great. We didn't know that he was a magic guy. And that's cool. Clearly he's a magic character. Awesome. This is good. And then you do the same thing. He gave the same treatment. Perfect. And then you end this. I think I would just have an ending moment to the fight of Shawshank and D high-fived each other, or high-fived each other, or whatever their characters would do to kind of like claiming victory over the beasts. I think I would just have something that ends the action, that clarifies that it's over before we move on to this. Okay, now they're going to go celebrate. This is good. And this is interesting. This is a really good ending. Staring, unblinking. Ooh, that's good. That's a really good description. For the red eyes bit, what that monster, where did my red eyes go? Staring, unblinking. The eyes were red and still, staring, unblinking. So that's another idea as well, Ketan. The eyes were red. So the eyes were red and staring, unblinking. He knew it was bewitched. He knew the unblinking gaze which looked into his soul, and he knew the creature was bewitched. You could do any number of things, but I think that's a good idea, Mammyy Telly. Let's see. And then as we go into that next section, lanterns flickered weakly. This is excellent description, by the way. Lanterns flickered weakly. Their glow barely enough to illuminate the cobblestone paths that wound through the narrow alleyways. Perfect description. Wonderful. And when you say nubile, just the word nubile suggests oh, hold on just a second, my computer froze up. Bear with me just a second while the stream catches up. Yep, perfect. It looks like it's freezing on me. Hold on just a second, guys. Oops. I don't know what happened. It the page refreshed when I went to go Google something. Let me throw that back up. Okay, perfect. Oh, that's right. So I was saying like the word nubile is nubile sexually attractive. So I get what you're trying to say. I would say change your word choice, Ketan. I wouldn't use the word nubile because it kind of makes it feel like predatory. I think it's obvious when the characters are with the two drunkards that capture them that clearly they're want to do unspeakable things. So I don't think you need to describe them as nubile. I think describing them as innocent would be a better word choice. Green for their innocent daughters. That'd be my recommendation. No, this is good. They're searching for the children. I would actually, at the end of the parent searching scene, I would get rid of this. And then I would, let me see. Yeah, so I would actually delete this section and then cut there and end it off on the suspense right there. So that way that's where the story ends, at least in terms of that section. And then in terms of the children, I think the children's section works. I think the only thing you really need to change is their the two drunkards which capture them. I think the stranger is interesting. I would describe the stranger a little bit more. Like, what does he look like? Describe the stranger. What type of robe is he wearing? What type of stranger does he look like? And then the two drunkards, describe the drunkards. And I would also recommend like not setting them up as drunkards, only because you've set up the other two characters, the heroes, as drunkards as well. So you don't want your audience to like misplace or mix them up at all. I would set them up as evil guys. I mean, you could do drunkards if you really want, but just give them a little more description so we know them as more than just drunkards. But yeah, I loved the ending section. That was so interesting. I want to know more. So yeah, that's all that I got for you, Ketan. I hope that helped out a little bit. I know I went a little deeper into your story because you've submitted it a few times. So I really wanted you to get value out of this. But I hope that helped. I definitely went into a lot of description and feedback for that story. So I was really happy with how it turned out. All right. Awesome. And then, so once again, Ketan, thank you so much for submitting that. I hope that you got a lot of value out of the story. Okay, so what do we got next? So we got. So I think with where I'm at, I feel like that was we got some really good storytelling in there. Thank you, Jared. You're doing a great job. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. I once again, I always have fun digging and reading your stories. But I'm feeling my voice giving out now, so I think it's time for me to take a break. Wow, we're approaching almost 4 hours. Every single time I think I've done the longest live stream, I like amaze myself and I do an even longer live stream. We're like getting close to the 4 hour mark. Of course, I got a lot of value. I'm so glad. Good luck in the next edits of your of the story, and like keep writing more. I'm eager to hear how the story continues. I want to know more about this portal magic and this chanting. I can tell you got some interesting things going on there. Awesome. So, by the way, as I'm going to throw this up again, as we look towards the morrow, once again, come back for the first episode of the Creative Right Now podcast. It will be streaming at 2 p.m. Mountain Time tomorrow, same time. Episode number 1 will be Writing a Novel That Matters with published author Mike Clausen. So we'll get to dig into some elements of storytelling, and you'll get to learn from a published author who's done it, who's published multiple novels and is doing it well. So stay tuned and come join us for the Creative Right Now podcast. That's all that I got for you today, creative writers. We have gotten so much storytelling, reading, critiques in today. Thank you for joining me on this for our daily Saturday review show. Don't forget to turn in your stories for next weekend. Isabella, I know you're one of the stories I didn't get to. Queue yours up for the beginning of next week's show, my friend. Let's see. Ketan, so I want to ask you, the story is a mixture of telling and showing, right? I was afraid that it's telling only. Yeah, I would say it was definitely a mix of both. You definitely did a good job of combining the two. There are times where it's showing and times where it's telling. And I think sometimes you could show, there's times where you can show a little bit more, and there's times where you could tell a little bit more. But overall, the pacing doesn't feel horrible. I think you did a good job of trying to find balance between the two. So, and like the points which like I highlighted, like there are points where like the showing you did, the descriptions were really good. So really good work, man. Really, really good work. Awesome. By the way, don't forget, tap that like button on your way out. Don't forget to show that you got value out of this live stream. And yeah, that's all that I got for you today, creative writers. I appreciate you. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you